My toxic entitled bosses mess around with me and my job by nearly trying to get me in trouble for something I had permission for. So I decided to get some revenge by quitting on the spot and also exposing them for all the illegal things that they were doing behind the scenes. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few years ago. And to start things out, I am a certified teacher with a master level recognition from my state. This equates to basically being a good teacher that goes above and beyond, but also comes with perks including a pretty nice yearly bonus and getting to bypass certain paperwork requirements. And trust me, this will be important later on. I work for a fairly large and relatively decent charter school system, all for about 10 years. I taught world geography and world cultures and was pretty well liked by my students, mostly because I gave as good as grades as I got, but also focused on having a fun and interesting class rather than meeting metrics. At the district level, they love me because I wrote a lot of my own curriculum and exceeded metrics, and they placed me in multiple district positions, including curriculum writing, training, and subject leadership, all of which came with extra pay. However, the principal absolutely hated me. He was deeply sexist, even more deeply incompetent, and did not know how to deal with someone like me who was unwilling to put up with either of those things. I have a business background, and I learned how to write professionally, where I basically tell them to get lost in truly satisfying ways. During my time working there, I became the person who would convey staff complaints about many things, including things like communication, safety, salary, non-contract demands, etc. We had a lot of issues, especially since our state makes it pretty hard to unionize, and they were constantly trying to get away with illegal stuff. Obviously, this made my principal and some of the other admins hate me, but they couldn't discipline me since I always wrote with professional language, cited educational codes, and included evidence. In addition, also to not actually doing anything wrong outside of calling them on their stuff. Furthermore, my students did well, and both they and the parents generally liked me. Add to that the fact that the district liked me, and I was basically an annoyance that they could do nothing about, including refusing to renew my contract. Well, that is until the end of the 2022 school year. At this point, we were told that the principal was leaving, but was being replaced by one of the other admins who had a bad reputation throughout the district. I decided to give them a chance though and hope that some of the illegal and awful comments would stop. But spoiler alert, unfortunately it didn't. This announcement was then followed by them telling me that they were moving my grade levels from 6th grade to 9th grade on level and 10th grade AP. This would mean a massive change in grade, having to learn 2 new curriculums, and having to become AP certified. Plus all of those district positions, yeah, they were tied to my grade level, which is why they couldn't move me before, so I would effectively be losing about $6,000 a year. They explained that this had to happen because they needed to use my ability to bypass paperwork that came with being a master level teacher, and for reasons related to post-COVID education. When my district level contacts found out, they were pissed off but couldn't do anything about it because it was a valid change and saved the district money with the bypass. So I decided to bite the bullet and just do it, partially because it meant teaching students I'd had before, which is a huge help, and because I live in a state that is actively passing laws to prevent history teachers like me from existing, and that was not a fight I wanted to get into. So the fall of 2022 rolls around, and I go full force into it, get a good relationship with my students, and try to get along with all of the new administration. Except they basically immediately try to get me to commit fraud, and as I found out, a lot of the communication being sent by my old principal was actually written by the new one. But you know what? I love my students, so I tried to make it work. But the inciting incident that finally caused me to snap actually didn't have to do with teaching. Instead, it was my child. At the time, they were taking in-person classes at the community college about 10 minutes away from my campus, and they only had a driving permit as my city doesn't have public transportation. I asked one of the admins if it would be okay if they came to school with me each morning, hung out for an hour, and then I would take them to campus during my off period. They said it was okay, especially as my child has actually been a volunteer on campus for many years. Well, 3 weeks into this arrangement, I get an email that my child is being detained in the front lobby and that I needed to take them home. Now, what's the reason, you might be asking? They were quietly doing their homework in the teacher's lounge, and Professor Karen didn't like that. I told them that they could let me wait 20 minutes to take my child when the campus opened up, or get a substitute for the day. They told me to wait and check my child inappropriately next time. 2 days later, I get called into the principal's office for a formal meeting. When I get there, the entire admin team is waiting, and there are even papers ready for me to sign. To say they look smug at finally being able to write me up is an understatement. And the reason for all of this is because I brought my child onto campus. At first, I was genuinely confused because staff regularly brought their children to campus, especially since most of our children went to different schools that didn't even have the same holiday schedule. It had never been a problem, but it was now. school, so I was going to need to sign a written reprimand for not following a procedure that hadn't even been put into place yet. But that wasn't even the stupidest part. You see, the principal had decided that I was bringing my child to campus all on my own. When I finally interrupted them and pointed to the admin I had gotten permission from, the principal looked startled. They had never even communicated, and I was getting disciplined for something I had permission to do, which the admin confirmed during the meeting. Suddenly, I was being told, oh, never mind about the write-up, but that I needed to find a new plan for my child's getting to school. As I left, I made a comment about maybe needing to find a new job instead, which gave them a moment of panic. Now, being a reasonable adult, I went home to discuss it with my husband, and we both agreed it was time for me to go. Between the yearly bonus and the time worked but as of yet paid, due to the way teacher salaries work, I could quit and still get close to $30,000, enough to give me time to find another job. My husband is amazing and, just like myself, is very petty, so we both just decided to wait. 2 weeks from the date in question, we were having a tutorial weekend on campus. This meant that I could enter without anybody knowing unless they checked the cameras. So that weekend, while the building was opened, my husband and I emptied my classroom. And if you've been a teacher, you can appreciate the amount of crap that I've accumulated over 10 years. I had taken some less obvious things home during those weeks, but my classroom went from the most poster TV set looking room to a wasteland in literally an hour. Many of the things that made the room usable were mine too, so that was even more fun. More hilariously, the following Monday was a campus training day, so I went and got paid one more day to mess around with my coworkers, which included a couple of people who knew about the plan and were so excited. On Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, I emailed my resignation, as well as a still professional list of grievances, including many specific critiques of the admin and an outright statement of many of the illegal things they were doing. And after that, I went right back to sleep. From what my colleagues told me, it was an absolute mess. It took them 30 minutes to realize that my first period class didn't have a teacher. By that time, the other members of my department, whom I kindly emailed, had covertly sent it to all the other teachers on campus. By the end of the day, I heard that one of my coworkers had read it to the entire class that knew me, and that several parents had read it too. I had given my colleagues permission to give one of my emails to my students because I did love them, and by the end of the day, my inbox was filled with some heartwarming notes and promises to carry my legend forward. And even to this day, I keep in contact with several students until they got a new teacher so they don't fail their AP exams. It took the campus 3 months to find a replacement. Part of this was because they had to find someone with the same qualifications, you know, that paperwork bypass, but they simply couldn't do it, and eventually just had to hire the new teacher and an additional tutor. But outside of that, some of my information is inconsistent. I was told that there were parent complaints and questions about if what I had said was true. One of the other teachers decided to carry on my torch and started pushing back on that awful place. And finally, since I also just happened to send the email to the superintendent, the new principal was under a lot of scrutiny for some of the illegal and against district policies that they had started enacting, and strangely enough, that principal was asked to leave the campus at the end of the year. The new principal is actually someone I worked with before and is apparently doing great things for the campus, so that is really good. I still occasionally get emails telling me that the students miss me, and I plan to go visit the campus soon to give other teachers some of my supplies. But for the most part, things have quieted down now, which in my opinion is what's best for the students in the end. Oh man, I love the fact that you had them right by the throat when you said, oh, maybe it's time for me to find another job, because they knew for a fact they screwed around and now they're gonna find out. This story is beautiful. I'm so happy you got back at these people, and I'm really happy that you exposed the illegal crap that they were doing. Because let's think about it for a second. No one's gonna put their reputation and their job on the line to quit a place and be like, oh yeah, there's also illegal stuff going on, especially someone with a good reputation like you. So the fact that you whistle blew that information and people started to catch on and be like, wait a second, something sketchy is going on, like that makes you a hero in my opinion, and I'm so glad that you did this. So good for you for taking down this corrupt system, because these people absolutely deserved it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My best friend has been lying to my face for 7 years, as he has secretly been in love with me this entire time. And right now, I feel like I'm in some stupid weird soap opera, and I honestly have no clue how to end this friendship. Here's what happened. I'm honestly struggling with trying to figure out where to start with this, so I guess I'll just begin with some context. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I've been friends with my friend, who we will call Blake, for about 10 years now. He's the same age as me, and we met when I was traveling for a new job out of state, and I kid you not, immediately we became best friends in the week that I was there. We had the same interests, we had great energy and conversation, we just just clicked right away. We were friends for nearly 2 years before trying the dating thing. It lasted 3 months, and trust me, this will be important later on, during which Blake did not treat me well due to unresolved issues from prior relationships. Before I could end it, he decided to end it himself, as he had feelings for someone else. Fine with me, we were clearly better as friends. I took some space because he hadn't been treating me well. He got into therapy and apologized for being awful, and was willing to put in the work to regain my trust for our friendship, which he did consistently over the next 8 years. Fast forward to now, and I'm now happily married to my wonderful husband, who we will call Cam. He's 28 years old, we've been together for 6 years, and married now for 2. Blake and I are also still best friends. He and his ex, after our brief dating stint, broke up, and he is now with a wonderful woman who we will call Kaylee for almost 2 years now. They also started dating a few months prior to my wedding, and this also will be important. Kaylee and I are also good friends, and she is the sweetest person. Blake also lives in the same city as me now after his mother passed away, since he moved down here for a better support network, with his girlfriend moving in about 9 months ago. Well, for the past 6 months or so, things have been very strained with Blake. My husband is very introverted, and Blake started voicing frustration about his inability to be closer friends with Cam, and feeling like he bothers Cam. He and I also started having weird arguments, kind of these subtle belittling comments that came out of nowhere. Then my husband and I came over for a game night for Blake's birthday 3 months ago, during which Blake picked fights with me about very weird things. For example, my career path and how I'm going about it wrong, making comments like, "I guess you want to stunt yourself in life. You could do it that way," as well as a bunch of other stuff. Well, both Cam and I were caught very off guard, and after several attempts to shut it down, we made excuses and we headed home. Later on, Blake proceeded to send me a text message asking if I was okay because the vibes felt off, to which I was like, no kidding, and then I explained my issue. He then decided to reply with an email, and this was 8 long paragraphs about how he felt his experience and knowledge was being diminished in our discussion, how he felt ganged up on when Cam would defend my side, and how he felt that he couldn't be himself around me and Cam anymore. He also made comments voicing that he didn't feel like he could trust me because I tell Cam everything, which is not true. I always ask before sharing, unless it's something dangerous or a moral issue. And he thinks that I'm unhealthily codependent on Cam because whenever Blake and I hang out one-on-one, I'm always calling Cam to let him know how late I'm gonna be out for, or to check if I'm cool to pick up takeout. But it's like we're married with joint finances. What's the problem here? Well, I replied trying to clarify my end, as well as understand where the ever-loving crap this was coming from, because no matter how many times I tried, he just kept going in circles. The emailing back and forth, during which he demanded we not meet up till this was resolved, lasted till about 2 weeks ago, when I said I needed time to think about how to reply next. About a month ago, I got into therapy because it was seriously messing with my head and making me feel like I was a problem, and like I couldn't talk to anyone about this because we share much of our support system. I finally broke down to my sister when she came over to see why I hadn't been answering her, or really anyone lately. She is also friends with Blake through me. I let her read the emails and she got pretty ticked off on my behalf, and then proceeded to drop a bombshell on me and Cam. Blake is apparently still in love with me and hates Cam's guts. Apparently, when she drove to pick up Blake out of state for our wedding, as he was a groomsman, he confided in her and her husband that he didn't agree with the wedding and wished that I would break up with Cam and give him another chance, that we're soulmates and Cam isn't the one for me. Blake has heard me talk since day one about how happy Cam makes me and how safe and loved I feel with him, but my sister shut it down, and even better, Blake proceeded to do the same thing when she drove him back home after our wedding. He ended off saying he just needed some time, so my sister kept her mouth shut because she knew that he's my best friend and hoped that she would trust him to resolve it over time since he lived far away. Blake then moved near me about a year ago, and Kaylee moved in the August afterwards. My husband and I's wedding anniversary is in October, and apparently Blake called my sister's husband to again confide that he's still in love with me and wishes that I would divorce Cam because he would be a better husband to me. And this is literally while living with Kaylee, who he's told me is his soulmate. And by the way, this was about when all the stress started, so she never found a good moment to bring it up. Well, as icing on the cake, Kaylee and I have been keeping up via text messaging through all of this, again, because we're friends. And during the past few weeks, I learned some odd things. Kaylee got new piercings, reportedly encouraged by Blake to do so because he thought that she would look so cute. It's a double nose piercing and a septum, which possibly coincidentally, Blake took me to get as a post-wedding gift 2 years ago. Also, Blake apparently has a beef with the month of August, and so he's decided that their anniversary will be in October. The reason he gave us was because it's spooky month, and Cam and I started dating and got married that month. I also, at my sister's prompt, went back and checked with when Blake and I broke up, and that was on August 2017. Again, possibly coincidental, but it feels very odd, as I don't know why else he would have an issue with that month. It's also worth noting that Blake had another relationship fall apart because the girl was outright convinced Blake was cheating on her with me to the point of blasting me for weeks as some homewrecker. Cam and I always chalked it up to her insecurity, but now I'm wondering if she was just watching Blake carry on some weird one-sided emotional affair. I love my husband more than words can say, and he makes me happier than anyone I've ever met. He's my ultimate best friend. Learning all this has made me feel so gross and like a horrible wife, though Cam has been wonderfully supportive and doesn't blame me at all. All this to say, I'm ending our friendship, but I have no clue how. I feel like I have to tell Kaylee, as this has all happened during the relationship and living together, and the woman deserves the world. But also, I recognize that I have no real proof beyond spoken accounts and besides the weird emails. In the end, it sounds like some weird conspiracy theory or soap opera. My therapist is on vacation, so I'm on my own after learning all of this. I'm also realizing just how manipulative Blake has been for years given this context, and already feel shaky about confronting him given my serious confrontation anxiety, which he knows about and could easily try to exploit. I'm realizing more and more that he has massive control issues that I dismissed as anxiety for years, and the fact that he lives so close now fills me with dread rather than joy. I want to come out of this with no regrets, knowing that I stood up for myself and that I put a decisive end to this. I want Blake to know his actions and creepy ulterior motives are the reasons that our decade-long friendship is over. I've never ended a friendship myself, as I am a bit introverted as well, and this is basically friend breakup on steroids. How do I break this lunacy to Kaylee in a way that sounds remotely believable given the front that Blake has built up? I also would love some advice on how to go about telling Blake I know everything and that we are absolutely done, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is some crazy behavior because I can't honestly think of a situation where this would ever be remotely okay. Because think about it, this guy's been lying to the original poster for years. Like, we're talking almost a decade. In fact, they're in a relationship and this is how they feel. Now, I don't blame the sister for not saying something sooner, but also I kind of wish they had said something much sooner. Like, I don't know, after the wedding or something like that. I understand that the original poster was really stressed out and all that. Like, I totally get it, and I think that's very valid. But this easily could have been figured out so much sooner if the sister said something. But regardless, this is absolutely disgusting, and I seriously just can't imagine going through something like that. So in my opinion, I know if I was in your shoes, I would not only be direct, but I would also corroborate with my sister and be like, listen, you need to go in on this with me because I need some backup here. Because you can guarantee Blake's gonna lie through his teeth and be like, I never said that, that's a lie. So for me, I would absolutely get the sister and their husband on board and be like, guys, I need help with this is massive. Not to mention your husband helping out, who by the way sounds lovely, and any problems Blake has with that guy, in my opinion, are just completely stupid. So I really hope this works out for you and your husband in your favor, because this kind of behavior from Blake is incredibly creepy, and I really think that the both of you deserve some peace, especially away from a friend who's clearly been lying to you for several years. Am I the jerk for kicking my jobless friend out of my house, who said she was going to stay at my house for a few days, but ended up extending that into a 3-week stay? Because right now she is very hurt, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been friends with my college roommate for about 6 years now. We were super close in school, but grew apart after graduation. She moved across the country, and we mostly kept in touch through social media. Last month, she messaged me saying that she was going through a rough patch. She lost her job and her boyfriend dumped her, etc., and wanted to visit for a few days to clear her head. And you know what? I felt bad, so I said yes. Well, those few days turned into 3 weeks. She's been sleeping on my couch, eating my food, using my stuff, and not contributing anything. I work from home, and she's constantly interrupting my workday with her drama. When I suggested maybe it's time for her to look for a ticket home, she burst into tears saying that she has nowhere else to go, and I'm her only support system. Well, yesterday, I had an important Zoom meeting and specifically asked her to be quiet for 1 hour, and halfway through, she starts blasting music and FaceTiming someone in the living room. My boss definitely heard, and I was mortified. That night, I finally snapped and I told her she needed to leave by the end of the week. I even offered to help buy her plane ticket. She called me heartless and said a real friend would support her no matter what. She's also been posting vague stuff on social media about finding out who your true friends are during hard times. And you know what? I feel guilty because she is going through a lot, but I'm also exhausted from the constant emotional labor and the lack of boundaries. My apartment is tiny and I never signed up to be someone's indefinite crash pad and therapist. So am I the jerk for kicking my friend out when she was down on her luck? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say something that might seem really mean, but no, you are not the jerk. She took advantage of your free space, and instead of getting back on her feet, she stayed there for 3 weeks. That's way too long. She's got to figure her life out, and you did not sign up to basically facilitate that. And sure, your friend's gonna be pissed off, and she's gonna be like, wow, you're not a real friend. Real friends would be with me no matter what. They would help me out through the hard times. But when she's literally doing nothing to help out you and help out your time where you're trying to work and make a living, like that in my opinion shows that she's not actually looking for you to help her out during the hard times. If anything, it seems like she's running from her problems, and the best thing you can do is say, listen, you gotta get up on your feet and move forward. So maybe this is one of those like tough love moments or whatever, but seriously, she needs to figure this out. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking her out, because in my opinion, it's time for her to move on and get going, because staying at your house is not gonna solve a single thing in her life. An entitled manager acts like a complete jerk to my mother-in-law, refusing to give a store credit to us after his employees delivered our food incorrectly to our house. But eventually, we decide that enough is enough, as we choose to take the corporate route, forcing this jerk of a manager to comply with our reasonable request. And I'm seriously so blown away by how rude this guy truly was. Here's what happened. So this past Sunday, my mother-in-law had ordered pizza for everyone at her house. This is something she does regularly for her family. She's very kind and generous, often taking the younger kids into her home on weekends, so the kids and parents in our family have room to breathe for just a little bit. That doesn't leave much free time for herself, because she works as a full-time nurse during the week. We always thank her, we make sure she doesn't need a break that week, and let her know how much we appreciate her. This weekend though, she went above and beyond. She had the 15 and 12-year-old girl cousins and my 6-year-old son from Friday to Sunday night. All of this while bringing him to the birthday party we planned and set up for our own son on Saturday, and then offering to keep him afterwards. I mean, she really is amazing. So back to the pizza. She likes to order from that hut that makes pizza, and normally there aren't any problems. This time though, when her food was delivered, the pizzas were cold and they had forgotten 4 sodas. She was rightfully upset and called the store to see if they could still deliver the drinks, or if she could get a discount or some kind of refund. Now, it really should be noted that my mother-in-law was very respectful. So when she called the store on speakerphone, what I heard in response was honestly mind-blowing. My mother-in-law started off by saying, "Do you know if the driver who just dropped off our order could bring the sodas back? I think they may have forgotten them." The man on the other end of the line, who is the jerk of this story, responded to my mother-in-law by saying, "Nah, I can't do that." My mother-in-law said, "Okay, could I get a refund or something like that instead?" This jerk said, "Your driver was through DoorDash, so you'd have to talk to them about that." My mother-in-law at this point was confused. She said, "Oh, I didn't know that you guys did that. Don't you guys deliver?" The guy on the other line then says, "Yeah, well, when it gets too busy, DoorDash just covers our other deliveries." My mother-in-law then said, "Wait, I paid a $5 delivery fee to the restaurant, not to DoorDash. Where does that money end up going?" The jerk on the other line then loses his patience. He says to her, "Look, what do you want?" My mother-in-law says, "Well, I was hoping for some answers on my delivery and a discount or a refund. Is there a manager that I could speak with?" The jerk on the other line then screamed out that he was the manager and then reiterated, "What do you want?" Now, this is about the time me and the cousins noticed his tone shift. We were like, whoa, what is going on here? As it's right about here that things really started to escalate. My mother-in-law then asked if she could have his name, and this jerk said, "Nah, you don't need my name." So my mother-in-law circled back and said, "Can I just get a store credit or something like that?" But this entitled jerk once again screamed out, "Nope, can't do that." With all of us in the background, now joined by my younger brother-in-law who also lives there, we remarked by saying, "Why is he being so rude? They were the ones who forgot our drinks. We weren't even rude to them." My mother-in-law says the magic words. She says, "I think I'm just gonna call corporate, thanks." And it's right about then that this entitled jerk's tune suddenly changed. He took a pause and then he said, "You still want that store credit?" My mother-in-law said, "Yes," and then she recited off her number. But before she could even get the full number out, this entitled jerk interrupted her and said, "What's your number again?" And it's right about here that my mother-in-law's voice raised, because she was getting fed up with his rudeness. She said to him, "I was just saying it," and then she said it all over again. The entitled jerk then cuts in and says, "It's credited. You need anything else?" And my mother-in-law once again said, "Yes, I need the number to corporate if you have it." But even then, this entitled jerk said, "Nope, can't give it to you," with my mother-in-law eventually saying, "Then no, you can't help me." And then she hung up. Now, honestly, this whole thing really made me upset because of how much my mother-in-law had done for the family all weekend. So truly, to that entitled jerk, shame on you. You should not be in a professional position and speak to people people that way. As an ex-pizza place worker myself, I understand how rough the job can be, but that's no excuse to lash out to a customer who simply wants what they ordered or a refund if you can't provide it, because this guy's behavior was completely inappropriate. Yeah, that guy was being a massive jerk. It's very obvious that his store messed up, and they're the reason why this did not go out correctly. Like, he was just defensive right off the bat, getting incredibly rude and snappy with his mother-in-law, while also like refusing to give a store credit when they messed up. And I don't believe that for a second that this is somehow DoorDash's problem. I'm 100% convinced that it's the pizza place's fault, and they're the ones that have to pick up the tab. And for this manager to act this way is just so uncalled for. So good for you and your mother-in-law for getting this taken care of, but hopefully some kind of justice was brought down on that manager, because the way he was talking was completely inappropriate, and your mother-in-law absolutely did not deserve that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit last minute and ruining the parents' important plans, all because their son seemed older than what they said they were? Because right now, everybody's angry with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I'm a 19-year-old female, and I've been babysitting occasionally for a few families for the past 2 years. A week ago, a new family got my numbers from one of the families that I babysit for a lot. I told them up front that I have this rule where I only babysit boys that are 10 years of age and under, but when it comes to girls, the age isn't an issue for me. They told me they had 2 boys ages 9 and 10, so I agreed. They told me that they had very important plans the day I am to babysit, and I reassured them that I am very professional, and I will be there on time and all that good stuff. The day came and I went to their house, and the dad greeted me. Then he took me to their living room to meet their boys. To my surprise, the boys looked like no 9 or 10-year-old I've ever met. One looked about 12 years old, and the other one looked like he could be 15 or 16 years old. Both of them were taller than me, and the older one even had some visible facial hair. All that was going through my head was these parents lied to me about the ages, because I lead with my rule about ages, and they lied to me just so I would accept. When the mother came down and greeted me, I asked to speak with her in another room, and I told her I cannot babysit. I was also truthful about the reason, and she was livid. We got into a back and forth where I basically said that I feel they lied about the ages, and she said to me, "Oh, so you want me to show you their birth certificate to believe me?" And at that point, I was kind of mad because she was immediately livid, and I also felt like I was fooled. So I said, yeah, some proof would really help. She stomped off to the living room, and I could hear her screaming at her husband. She said, "Get this jerk out of my house. I will stay with the boys." I walked out of the kitchen towards the front door, and I announced that I'm leaving before I stepped out. Later that night, the mom of the family who recommended me called and was pretty angry. I explained that these boys looked so much older than they were said to be, and there was no way they weren't lying. She said maybe one is actually 11, but the other truly is 9 years old, and that they just look like they're so much older. To be fair, the mother was tall and the dad was huge. It's actually the reason I asked to confront the mother and not the father. But these boys weren't just tall, they also looked older face-wise. Also, babysitting 2 strange boys who were both taller and clearly so much stronger than me doesn't feel safe, which is why I have the age rule in the first place. There was no way that their mother didn't realize her boys looked so much older than boys their ages. I feel like it was something she should have mentioned, especially after I told her my rules about who I'm going to be babysitting. I felt like I was justified, but I also felt bad about ruining their plans. Everyone involved is angry with me, and I wonder if maybe I was overreacting and should have just babysat since I agreed. Because right now, I don't know what to think, and I seriously don't know what to do. No, honestly, this is not your fault. I don't think you're the jerk at all. I personally think the mom and the dad were completely lying in this scenario, and that's why the mom immediately, like right off the bat, got incredibly upset at you. And that's because you try to stick to your boundaries and stick to your plan. And I also don't blame you for not wanting to babysit any boys over the age of 10. For your own safety, that makes a lot of sense. And the boys you're describing do not sound like kids at all. I mean, one of them nearly had facial hair. I don't know about you, but personally, I've never met a child that has facial hair like that, although I'm sure there's some kind of anomaly out there that maybe I've just never seen before. So if these parents didn't want their night ruined, then they should have been a bit more honest, because clearly they were trying to pull one over on you, and I don't think you deserve that in the slightest. My girlfriend has gone off the rails, as she is blatantly taking advantage of me and refusing to pay me anything towards utilities, while also living in my house rent-free. And I'm now at the point where I'm asking her to leave and move out, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been having some serious issues. I asked my girlfriend to move out a couple of weeks ago because I didn't feel like she respects me or my house, and I feel frequently taken advantage of. For reference, I bought a house by myself a couple of years ago when I was partnered in a large business. I didn't recommend that we break up, but just took some space so that she could shoulder some of her own responsibilities financially, just to see what it actually takes to be fully financially responsible as a person. My mortgage is $2,300, and I work from home, so my utilities like the power I cover myself. I've got a car and a small loan that I'm paying off, and overall, my bills are roughly $4,500 more, and since she's moved in, it's maybe like $4,800, and that's not including business expenses, and this is all give or take a couple hundred depending on utilities. Before she moved in, she said that she could afford to give me $600 a month, which basically was $150 a week. I even said that I would take $500 if she could do it all at once, and I would legitimately use this money to take care of her. And that includes absolutely everything: food, utilities, even the occasional herb that I get for myself. I make enough to get by, but not enough to take care of someone else 100%. I make about $65,000 after taxes, and it's my first year as a solo business owner, and I still haven't paid my taxes yet, so I can't say 100%. But either way, I still drive DoorDash in my awful little 3-cylinder gas saver, and this is when I'm not busy doing other things. I work 40 to 60 hours a week regularly, but I love running my own business. Now, back to the point. She's not given me anything in the past 2 months, and she even took a flight to go visit family, and that was cool and everything like that. But when I recommended that she get her own place again, she started throwing stuff and just screaming. There was some minor damage to 2 of the walls and a few holes from picture frames, and then she threw my pasta roller and put a dent in the hardwood floor. I'm not saying her mental health is more important than my house, but after throwing several smaller objects, she was slowly starting to grab bigger objects, and so I eventually tried to stop her by grabbing her hand. And when I did that, this 110-pound girl started punching me in the face. She hit me 4 times really quick before I let go. For reference, I'm 5'9" and 190 pounds, and I'm in great shape, and I've never been more shook up by someone hitting me. I just wanted her to stop throwing my stuff. I eventually lost it. I backed away screaming, "What in the world is wrong with you? You actually just hit me." I started screaming some nasty words while I was angry, how her best friend was trashy, how I wanted her out this instant, how she was lazy and ungrateful, and how she needed anger management, and that her parents didn't finish raising her. When she told me that I was being crazy, I realized I indeed was being pretty crazy, and I stormed off downstairs in my office to be alone. I was extremely upset that I had lost my temper, but was shocked that she had hit me as well. I was really going through it emotionally. Now, for a bit of backstory on this best friend of hers, they are constantly going out weekly and drinking, or just going on day trips weekly. They've also worked together and have been fired from multiple jobs together, and this is due to both of them drinking on the job. And I was hyping her up to look for a new job because she hated her current one so much. Now, here's the thing. I'm cool with having fun. I just can't get my head around going out with friends when she is so broke, she doesn't even have the funds to afford new windshield wiper blades. The next day, there was a sorry card and some flowers, but nothing was said about it for another 24 to 32 hours. That is, until I was at the gym, and she asked me if I was just going to ignore it. I told her I was waiting for her to give it to me so we could talk, and I got home and I came home to the card ripped up and the flowers in the trash instead. I pulled it out and the card literally just said, "I'm really sorry, I love you so much," and I pulled the flowers out because I thought they were nice. We talked for a bit and things calmed down just a little bit, and communication has been alright for about a week or so. Well, today rolls by and the same thing happens, where she didn't give me any money, which is something we agreed upon last Friday that she would do. Also, I have to force her to do chores and she's got an attitude about it the entire time. I literally put all her clothes away because they were just thrown all over the guest room. So today we make plans to go to the store after she got back from the gym today at about 12 o'clock. She texted me that she doesn't want to go to the store and that it makes her anxious and she will just send me some money. And this was all at 1:50 p.m. too. She also stated that she was going with her friend to go get some lunch, this being the same friend that I don't like. So I told her that I had just wanted to spend some time with her because I only needed to grab a bag of protein, and that I was only really going so she could grab some stuff herself. And this is because all she does is complain about being hungry the day before and that there was nothing else to eat in the house. I also said that I wasn't going to spend that time by myself shopping for the both of us when I have over 2 weeks worth of protein, veggies, and carb sources that I'm going to use for myself at the house. She just replied by saying, LOL, really? And I asked her what she thought was so funny. At this point, it's like 4 p.m. now, and she's like posting pictures of her and her friend's family, as well as several of her friends playing a board game, as well as drinking some drinks. And when I saw that, I just got more annoyed. She told me I was being selfish, and I snapped back by saying, it's not like I was waiting to hang out with you all morning. I mean, I pushed back work on her day off, but she'd literally rather go play games with her friends and drink and hang out with them instead of me. And she's got to go to work with them tomorrow. I then also reminded her that she's given me nothing towards any bills for over 2 months, and that she should probably get her own place, because then she might be a little bit more grateful for all the things I've done for her. Well, she left for the gym and came back 8 hours later, and I just cleaned the guest room out and asked her to sleep in there. Honestly, I am so upset to be in this position. I feel like I'm going to lose a friend, but I honestly cannot let someone take advantage of me like that. I know I'm far from perfect, and she says asking where she is mad controlling, but I just think it's common courtesy to let your significant other of over a year, who you also live with by the way, to let them know exactly what's going on in your life. I mean, I didn't know what was happening for almost 5 hours. Look, I love her, but between the hitting, the lack of motivation, the awful trashy friends, I mean, should I just get her out of here? Am I a complete jerk? I felt like I was asking the bare minimum, but she can't even give me that. What should I do? I can confidently say that your girlfriend does not care about you, and she is using you for a place to stay. Like seriously, let's look at the facts real quick. This lady is not thinking about you in the slightest. She's using you and basically like getting out of paying any kind of bills. She has physically hit you, which is a massive red flag. She also is neglecting you and is refusing to talk to you in some kind of like functional way. Like that's insane to me, and there's no good excuse for that. For reference, by the way, the original poster is 32 and his girlfriend is 31. Like the way your girlfriend's acting, it really seems like she's stuck in her teenage years because her behavior is so atrocious. This is not fair for you in the slightest, and it puts you in an awful position because clearly you love this lady, like you obviously have some kind of connection with her, and you want to try and make this work, but she is taking advantage of you left and right, and she's doing nothing to improve the situation, and that in and of itself is just completely unfair. So I know if I was in your shoes and I had a girlfriend acting like this, I would not feel bad about saying, look, you've got to go. You got to find your own place and figure your own stuff out, because you can't just live in my house rent-free and then also treat me like garbage and hit me and throw things around my house and expect me to want to keep you around. And if anything, with all things set aside, the fact that she punched you in the face repeatedly, as well as threw things around the house, in my opinion, is unacceptable. That is an absolute deal breaker for me, and there's no way she's ever gonna stay there if I was in your shoes, because she absolutely could have been arrested for a lot less than that. And in my opinion, you deserve a much better relationship than what your girlfriend is currently giving you. I have a guest who has overstayed her welcome and has completely taken advantage of me in a way that I never expected, and I'm now at such a loss that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and I am trying to figure out a way to tell a guest of mine who's 38 years old that she needs to leave my apartment. For a bit of background, I only knew this lady for about a year through mutual friends. We were not extremely close, but had simple, cordial interactions. One day, the lady wanted to hang out at my place, which turned into frequent visits. She then told me that she was in the process of finding a new apartment, but the move-in date for the one that she wanted was 2 weeks away, and she would need to go out of town to stay with family and come back. So I offered this lady to stay with me instead in the meantime, and I now regret this decision. I should have known better and found out her character the hard way. I truly thought there was no issue with her because she does have a good job and she is 38. Well, it's been about 2 months now, and it doesn't seem like this lady is going anywhere. She brought many of her clothes and items, she goes to work and comes back, and I'm now feeling so uncomfortable in my own apartment. And in addition, this lady is apparently very nosy and wants to know everything, every single step outside that I take. The lady is always overwhelming me with her life drama to kind of make me feel bad too. I later learned that she is a people user, as she's actually told me that she stayed with other people over the past few months. I am struggling to figure out how to ask her to leave without turning into the bad guy. I am in a long distance relationship, so I thought about asking my man to come, but I am convinced this lady will not leave until the day of and will want to come back around. So I'm honestly at such a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first things first, I think you need to get the idea of being the bad guy out of your head completely. You need to embrace the fact that she's probably gonna have some kind of reaction from this, and that is honestly not your problem. She is invading invading your space. She said she was going to be there for what, 2 weeks? And that has slowly morphed into 2 months. This lady could obviously find another place to live because you're not the only person that's had to deal with this in the past. So any notion of like, oh, but she has nowhere to go, that thought is a complete lie, and you need to chase that out of your head. Because the fact of the matter is that this lady is using you. She is using you as a free place to stay, as well as having a place to stay without any kind of rent. You've also hit the nail on the head when you identified her as a people user. Like, there's very clearly a pattern here, and it's unfortunate that you had to learn this the hard way. Also, all this drama that she's trying to share with you, as well as her being like, oh man, I need a new apartment, but I don't know how to get there. Like, it's all manipulation tactics. She's only sharing that to try and make you feel guilty, so you will feel forced to try and let her stay in your apartment just a little bit longer. So honestly, in my opinion, it's time to start communicating your boundaries and explain to her upfront exactly how you feel. It's time to lay it all out on the board and say, this is how it is. Give her a timeline of when she needs to move out so that you can have your apartment back. Because this is not a permanent engagement. She cannot stay here forever. That is not what you agreed upon. And if she throws a fit, well then fine, throw a fit. But do that while you're packing your bags and getting out of my house. Because what she's doing right now is completely inappropriate. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be making these steps much sooner than later. My entitled Karen of a mother walks out on my family anytime someone says anything she doesn't like, leaving the family for months on end and making me and my father feel like garbage in the process. And after dealing with this for so long, I'm seriously at such a loss, and I really don't know how to deal with my mother or how to move on. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Okay, so for a bit of backstory, I am a mousy 18-year-old female, and I'm finishing up high school and my 2-year degree. I am first in my class. I've been awarded many honors for my academic achievement and athletic ability, and have participated in academic camps, including a month-long summer camp where I focus on mathematics, as well as several other camps at universities across the nation, and this will be relevant later on. I live with my mother and father, and it is because of them that I work so hard. Now, moving on to the story, I'm beginning to feel resentment towards my mother because every time I offer constructive criticism, she just leaves. She's done this since I was a little kid, and has done this more to my dad than to me. If you act sarcastically towards her, she takes it as a real statement. If you say you're crazy while laughing after she said a joke, she thinks that you are insulting her. All of this can be avoided if you know that she acts negatively towards it, but like in all healthy relationships, one thing can't be avoided, and that thing is constructive criticism. Beginning in January of 2023, her demeanor towards criticism became increasingly more hateful after one event. My first and only boyfriend, a boy whom my mom and father quite literally forced me to date originally, made a dire mistake. I love him dearly, but he made the mistake of using a phrase with my mom that is a no-go in our house. My mom was joking with him, and he jokingly said, "Oh, get out of here." And it was like the world came crashing down. My mom instantly hated him, and once she hates someone, there is no turning back. Regarding her immediate hatred towards him, in the following weeks, I was keeping him up to date on if relations were getting any better. I made the mistake in our private messages of sending a certain meme that involves Carl Wheezer from Jimmy Neutron that more or less says that she is mad. What I didn't anticipate was that later, my mom, in her typical fashion of being controlling, went through my phone. She saw the meme and it was immediate hysteria. My mom was screaming, crying. She was throwing items at me, telling me how awful of a daughter I had been. I was told that I was an ungrateful jerk. She told me that they had been lying to me about my IQ and that I was not actually that smart. Then, without listening to my explanations of the meme, she packed her things and then she left. And I don't know why, but I was surprised. She had done this several times before, but it was never towards me. It was always me and my dad or just my father. For weeks, she would not even talk to me. She stayed gone for a month, unwilling to say a word or listen to a single thing. During that month, I was home alone many nights, from where she let my father know where she was staying, and he went to see her. Those long nights, I stayed on calls with my boyfriend, who seemed to blame himself for the situation. He encouraged me to go stay with his parents who live nearby, but I felt like such a burden. I didn't want to ruin anyone else's life. If my own mother didn't love me, then who could? A few months went by and my mom came back, and she just pretended like nothing happened. According to her, she had left to lick her wounds. I got accepted into the prestigious month-long summer camp, and during my time there, I was struggling. It was math like I had never seen before. It was proofs and topology. And if you don't know what that is, in my eyes, calculus is elementary in comparison. In the midst of this, my mom texted me almost every day to say that she wanted to begin filling out college applications while I was there. I told her I didn't want to do that just yet, and not thinking as I should have been, I told her that she was stressing me out. And this was about halfway through the month of camp. I received no further contact from my mom, and my father came to pick me up alone and then took me away on a vacation for the weekend. Since then, I have turned 18 years old and I still am with my boyfriend, which is much to my mother's dismay. I'm about to head off to college, and in celebration, I was considering going to Japan. My boyfriend is in the army and is deployed to Korea, and this trip has been a lifelong dream for me, so it's perfect timing. My father supports it, as he still absolutely loves both of us and sees us as everything he wishes he would have been when he was younger. My mom, however, is saying that she's gonna leave my father if he supports us being together or if he lets me go on the trip. In addition, she wants to force me to stay off campus at my future university so that I can stay in a house with her. She has also mentioned wanting to have a room in whatever house I own when I'm out of college and living there the rest of my life. Meanwhile, she continues berating me about how I'm lazy, conspiring against her by wanting simple adult freedoms, and is being very verbally and emotionally awful towards me as always. If I'm having a bad day and have droopy eyes or eye bags, she thinks I'm giving her a look. I get the silent treatment almost every day, and when I'm not getting that, I'm hearing all about her job and how she hates it and how every one of her friends is a deadbeat and all this other stuff. On top of everything, I've caught word that there's a shiny gift to be expected from my boyfriend once I get out of high school. And this is all per my dad's arrangement, so I have no idea how to deal with bringing that up to my mom. So honestly, do I sound like the jerk here? My mom and dad do work hard to care for me. They do push me, but I guess it does make me do better regardless of how depressed and anxious I may feel now. I know they both really do love me, but they struggle to show that. My mom is a typical Karen according to my classmates, both via her attitude and her appearance, which mirrors the stereotypical highlighted A-line cut, but even then I still hope that she loves me, because at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this outright. No, of course the original poster is not the jerk. Your mom is awful. She is literally an awful human being. What you've described is so unbelievably nasty, and it's so unbelievably immature. So anytime anyone says anything to her, she just packs her bags and just runs out the door. Like, what kind of mother would do that? Like, that is not a good parent or even a parent to begin with. It's incredibly manipulative, and it's just so incredibly toxic. Like, the original poster walks around on eggshells every waking moment of their life, wondering if what they're gonna say next is gonna set this lady off. And then just like that, she's gonna play the victim and run off for months on end. And your dad is no better in this situation either. He's allowing this behavior to happen and essentially saying, okay, I'm gonna go visit your mom who had to run away because of you. Even though he's not like specifically articulating that, his behavior and actions speak way louder than any words he could possibly say. Now, it's very clear in my opinion that now that you're an adult, your mom still wants to control every aspect of your life. That's the only reason why she's like, okay, for college, you're gonna live with me, instead of you living on campus and living a normal college life. The other evidence of that is her being like, oh, I'm gonna live in the house you live in after college. And I've gotta say this quite honestly, if you do agree to that and give in to her weird demands, this behavior will never stop. This is all just a form of manipulation where when she doesn't get her way or when she perceives some form of like criticism, she runs off and gives you the silent treatment just to punish you. Because in those few months where she's gone, you're sitting there wondering, oh man, she hates me. She despises everything about me. And it prompts you to have all these terrible thoughts. And that, in my opinion, is one of the worst ways of manipulation, for me at least. When someone gives me the silent treatment and they refuse to have like an adult conversation or some kind of like discussion in some kind of way, that to me is so hurtful, especially when it's someone that I love and care about. If it was a stranger, like who cares? But this is your mom we're talking about. This is someone you thought you could trust and like lean on, but clearly she's not mature enough to have any kind of conversation. Like, I'm amazed that your dad is stuck with her for this long, especially with her abandoning the family anytime someone says anything. So in my opinion, you are definitely not the jerk. Your mom is crazy and you do not deserve any of this treatment. And hopefully with you going away to college and hopefully you decide to live on campus, you're able to have a lot more distance from your mother and have a better perspective on the way she's actually treating you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled boss tries to demote me and cause me to lose over $9,000 in wages, all because he couldn't hire somebody else to help me out in my job. So I decided to get some revenge by quitting on the the spot and finding a better job, leaving my boss in an awful situation that he would have to figure out. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at a jerk like that in my life. Here's what happened. A few years ago, I worked at a janky 2-bit company. The boss thought he was a big shot, as well as God's gift simultaneously. He had such a big head, I'm surprised he could get through most doorways. He used to drink beer at his desk for lunch, and would often arrive at work very late. He was also an insufferable muscle bro, and walked around as if he was carrying rolls of carpet under each arm. This guy seriously was a massive jerk. A few months into my time there, the company starts winning large orders, so he asked me to set up a small-scale production line to increase capacity, and tells me the new hire will be situated there. So I design it, I set it up, I test that it all works, and I'm feeling a sense of pride with what I've accomplished. And you know what? It worked like a dream. I was confident that it would work really well for the new hire, and because I'm an engineer by trade, everything was perfect, and only I knew how to fix stuff that went wrong. Nobody else asked how it worked before, making some very detrimental decisions. A while later, there was an issue. He couldn't hire anyone willing to accept such an awful wage and boring work. So the big shot boss had a bright idea to try and demote me and make me governor of my creation. But there was no way I was going to work for $9,000 less. I immediately started job hunting, and I told him if that's your final offer, then regard tomorrow as my final day. Well, he begins to panic that he's committed the company to a $1 million order for shipping in 3 days' time. During his alcohol-fueled panic, he tells me to write up highly detailed technical manuals and processes for my replacement. Now, for reference, the production line included some precise handwork, so he got pretty upset when I said I can't do that in one day. He also didn't specify what they should contain, and considering I had no help from him with this project and only endured a lot of complaints, I thought to myself, screw it. If he wants a manual, then that's exactly what he's gonna get. I then created a Word document with convincing titles like Technical Manual, Product Version 2.0, as well as how to do this precise task. Inside the documents, for example, was a picture of the popular Pokemon Pikachu, with its face looking very surprised. And I also put Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys looking lost in the document as well. Then, below all of that, I put down one line of text. It said, "This manual contains all the information I could find or was given." The file sizes would also indicate a lot of text was contained within thanks to the images. Therefore, at face value, they looked legitimate. So I saved them to my laptop in an equally legitimate looking folder that afternoon, and early the next morning, I came to work to collect my belongings, as well as do some handovers. And when I was doing that, I found that the laptop had vanished. I said my goodbyes to my colleagues, and I looked over to see him looking incensed with a beer in one hand. He was so angry, he didn't even look up from his desk. A friend told me later that the company missed the production deadline, despite him working 12-hour days to catch up, and apparently the client was extremely angry. So I guess the moral of the story is that you shouldn't screw over good people, because in the process, you might just hurt yourself as well. Wow, that boss was completely out of line. Instead of paying somebody more money to try and work for his stupid company, he decides to demote the person who's actually making them the money in the first place. Like, seriously, buddy, you just bit the hand that feeds you. And the original poster has it right. I mean, if I was in his shoes, there's no way I would ever put up with that kind of treatment. Like, this guy might as well have been pulling $9,000 out of the original poster's pocket and throwing it in a bonfire. Like, that is seriously not okay, and I don't blame them for looking for another job, because the way they got treated was completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that it's her fault that our sons now hate and ignore their sister? Because right now she's really upset after what just happened, and I am seriously at such a loss that I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I have 3 kids. We have 2 boys ages 15 and 14, and a girl who's 12 years old. While my wife is a great mom to all of our kids, she always had a special bond with our daughter. I wouldn't frame it as a classic favoritism, but as a little bit more attention and love. The boys were always aware of this and teased their mom with it jokingly, but it was never a problem because she really is a great mom to them too. A few weeks ago, my 14-year-old boy, we'll call him Jim, that's not his real name, as well as our daughter, who we will call Anna, also not her real name, had a big fight and a screaming match. It turned out that Anna took Jim's AirPods to her dance class, forgot them there, and tried to lie about it. My wife intervened and apparently took Anna's side. I wasn't there, so I don't know. My older son, who we will call Alex, also not his real name, intervened on behalf of his brother and told his mom that she is unfair. Well, my wife doubled down and told them to get lost and that Anna is more important. Now, here's the thing. My boys swear that she said that Anna is more important than them, but my wife swears that she said that Anna is more important than a pair of AirPods. Alex exploded and called his mom an awful name. He took his brother and then he left. My wife called them for hours, but they just didn't answer. In the end, she called me and I picked the boys up. Now, the relationship between our boys and their sister has been gone ever since this. They don't talk to her, they ignore her when she approaches them, and they simply won't tolerate her presence. When she enters the room, they leave, and it is heartbreaking to watch. My wife tried to mend things and talk to them, but she gets aggressively ignored as well. Yesterday, my wife had a breakdown and started to cry after we went to bed and said that home life has been an absolute nightmare for the last few weeks. I had little sympathy and I told her to suck it up because it is her fault. Well, she then called me a jerk and cried even more. So honestly, am I the jerk? I know I am technically in the right here, but my wife is already devastated and remorseful. It's now my job to help her mend the relationship between the girls and boys in our home. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I don't think you're the jerk for being honest and being like, hey, you pretty much did this yourself, but you need to pair that comment with some kind of action. If you just leave it at that and do nothing to try and mend the situation, then in my opinion, that's going to be like an awful scenario. That's going to make all of this get worse and worse, and I just don't think that's going to serve anybody well in the slightest. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think there's a lot of things that need to be worked out, and hopefully for the sake of you and your family, everything can eventually be mended back to the way it was. My husband fully explained to me as to why he cheated on me, and I'm now at such a loss and so devastated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My husband and I are in our 40s, and he cheated on me with a girl in college. She's 21 years old, but he started the affair when she was 20 years old about 8 months ago. He's been cheating on me off and on for several years since I started menopause. And you know what? I found out while looking through his phone. He has an active dating app, and he set his age range specifically to 20 to 27 years old. I mean, he was never going to tell me he's cheating on me. I calmly told him that I know he's cheating on me, and he sighed and apologized, while also being relieved that I know because our marriage has been dead since our sons moved out. I asked him why he would cheat on me with someone so much younger than me, and honestly, the love in our marriage has been gone, and I'm more bothered by the fact of his age range being so low. It's just gross because our sons are the same age as these girls my husband is going after. My son's fiance is in their early 20s, and it's gross that my husband would go after her if she was single. Well, my husband told me that they are simply more attractive and that they are carefree. He told me not to take it personally because men will always find younger women attractive and how it's in their biology. He told me that older women can't compete with younger women, and he also said that she's bubbly and she's kind, she's full of life and she's not ugly, she doesn't have wrinkles when she smiles, and she isn't annoying. She isn't boring and she's fun, and she can drop what she's doing right now and come on a spontaneous adventure. And everything he told me just really hurt me so much. Those words kept replaying in my head at 4 in the morning. I can't sleep, and I keep thinking about how lifeless and boring my husband thinks I am. I told him that we're middle-aged and our bodies aren't meant to be out all night binge drinking and going on random midnight trips. We have responsibilities to think about. He says I'm making up excuses now because my husband has energy and he's full of life, and we don't have kids in the house anymore, and now I'm just making excuses for myself so that I can remain old and boring. And he might be right, but I'm not 21 anymore, and I don't desire to do 21-year-old things anymore. As for our marriage, he is leaving me. He's not leaving me for this college girl. They aren't even together anymore. He just wants a bachelor lifestyle. The boys know and they love us both, and they just want us to be happy. But I don't know if I can ever be happy. Not because of my husband leaving me, but it's because I can't get over the fact that he is right about me being lifeless over the years. That hurts more than the affair, knowing that this is true. I want to feel alive again, but I'm seriously at such a loss and I now don't know what to do. Well, I think we can all confidently say that your soon-to-be ex-husband is a massive jerk. This guy was clearly a deadbeat, and I honestly feel so bad for the original poster. They don't deserve this treatment at all. So honestly, on one end, I'm kind of glad you're away from this jerk, but also I really hope you're able to move past this, because the man you were married to is not a good person, and I really hope with time you're able to move past this and be the best version of yourself you ever could be. Am I the jerk for supposedly ruining my brother-in-law's reputation simply by telling the truth to my friends? Because right now, my brother-in-law and my in-laws are incredibly angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I want to say that all names in this story are fake. So my in-laws are currently furious with me for hurting my brother-in-law's feelings and reputation with my friend group. Recently, my single brother-in-law, Chris, has been hinting at me to introduce him to a woman, and I've refused. Chris has been single for almost 3 years, and he's been having a really hard time meeting women. He tried flirting flirting with my friend, but she had been cold and non-receptive. And this friend is a woman by the name of Grace. Grace is not interested in him due to his inability to be faithful, and she wasn't physically attracted to him either. He tried to flirtatiously engage with her during a small party my husband and I had last Saturday, and this was a party for my husband who got a long-awaited promotion, so it really was just a small party. But during the party, Grace had grown frustrated with his incessant flirting, and at some point told him in no uncertain terms that she found him physically ugly and that his physical ugliness is only surpassed by his ugliness of his character. She told him this in private, so no other guest heard her scathing review of his personhood. Well, Chris left the party, and the following afternoon, while my husband and I were nursing a wicked hangover, my in-laws, to my surprise, called me up and scolded me for having embarrassed and mistreated Chris. After a few minutes of us shouting back and forth on the phone, I reminded my husband that handling his family was his job. So while my husband argued with his parents, I reviewed our security cameras. And honey, Grace verbally tore him apart. Grace reminded him that he cheated and divorced his late wife by the name of Lily, all while she was battling cancer, and that he then got dumped by his mistress for being a cheater as he continued to cheat on her. Grace told him that he wasn't a man of any significant value other than the few coins he had in the bank, and that there's no way in the world she'd ever entertain his delusions. She also said that the only thing he had going for him was his overbloated job title as an executive director to a third-rate company that will probably collapse in the next 5 years. As a parting gift, she told him to consider some cosmetic work to improve his haggard appearance, and perhaps to start praying for divine intervention to fix his rotten soul, since there is no way a psychotherapist could ever come close to fixing whatever is wrong with him. Well, my in-laws and Chris feel that I should not have told my friends what Chris did because he's now perceived by my girlfriends as a terrible person. I told them that he was unfortunately a terrible person, and people would have found out what happened between him and his wife anyways. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I not only don't think you're the jerk, but I also think Chris really should not be invited back to anything that you do. Like, this guy does not sound like a good person at all, especially based on the fact that he cheated on his wife who had cancer. Like, this guy sounds like an awful human being, and I just would not want that around my house ever in the slightest. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think you're right that Grace would have found out about Chris's behavior pretty much no matter what. And in my opinion, any problems he has with finding women is literally his own fault and not yours. My entitled aunt and uncle freak out when my parents say they're gonna buy him a tablet to use for university, claiming that it would be a massive waste of money and that my brother would never use it for its intended purpose. And after dealing with this level of scrutiny and judgment, my family was utterly blown away when we found out that my uncle and aunt had not one but 2 iPads in their possession, resulting in my mother shutting them down in a glorious fashion. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back in 2011. My uncle, who's my mom's brother, and his wife were always the kind of people who would complain about anything that people would do with their life. And back in 2011, my brother was graduating high school and was about to start university. By that time, my parents were deciding if they should buy him an iPad so he wouldn't have to carry heavy books around, or if he needed to take pictures of the board. Maybe he could use the iPad and browse the information while studying, or he could use the iPad instead of a computer. So basically, he was going to use the iPad as some kind of big library for his studies. My dad at the time told my uncle about his predicament because he had never used an iPad while he studied, and he didn't want to waste a couple $100 just for it to be treated like a toy, or for it to not even be used at all. My uncle and aunt immediately flipped over and started saying that buying an iPad or any kind of tablet was a waste of money, and that my brother wouldn't even use it. Well, my brother was upset. He wanted his iPad. He thought that carrying an iPad and a notebook around was better than carrying a bunch of books, a calculator, many notebooks, and sometimes a laptop around. Anyways, a couple of months passed and we are in November. My brother started university in September, and if this is relevant, in my country, unless the university is in another state, people usually stay with their parents while they study. In November, we went to my uncle and aunt's apartment to celebrate my cousin's birthday, and at that moment, it was her second birthday. My cousin is about to get fussy until my uncle gets a tablet out of nowhere and gives it to her. My dad asked my uncle why he gave a tablet to a baby, and my uncle says he discovered that with a tablet, my cousin doesn't get fussy while on planes. Now, we are talking and stuff, and my aunt decided to take pictures, but she then takes out another tablet, and my mother asked her about the old digital camera, with my aunt just saying that it was old and she needed something new. Now, that day, none of us said a thing. We just went back to our houses after celebrating that birthday and didn't say anything. But the next day, my my dad took my brother to get his iPad. Now, my brother did use his iPad for university, and he only had like 1 or 2 games on it, but it mostly had books for engineering and related apps. Fast forward and on Christmas, we had dinner at my parents' house as always, and the moment my brother took his iPad out, my aunt and uncle went crazy, stating that my dad just wasted money and that my brother would just use it to play games. Well, my mom looked at him dead in the eye and said to him, "Oh, just like your 2-year-old daughter?" And when she said that, they went silent. They then tried to badmouth my brother's iPad every chance they could, but thankfully, my parents learned to not take my uncle seriously ever again. Wow, these people are literally the definition of being a hypocrite. Not only do they try to convince your parents to not buy your brother an iPad, but they also turn around and turn their kid into an iPad kid. And that's like so ironic to me, it's not even funny. You mean they really want to judge your brother for having an iPad for college, only to then turn around and buy not 1, but 2 iPads so that they can take pictures and have something for their kid to entertain them? Not to mention the fact that they seriously tried to make a fuss about this at Christmas. It's like, seriously, what is wrong with people? So they're willing to make their iPad a substitute parent, but your brother's not allowed to have it because he's just going to use it for games? Like, seriously, that's just so weird to me. So good for your mom and dad for putting them in their place, because your aunt and uncle were being incredibly entitled, and there is no reason that they should have acted like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mom demands that she can track my phone through an application, also she can help me out in case of emergencies. But since I know my mom and how this won't ever be used for emergencies, I'm hesitant to ever give my information out like that. But I'm now at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I have a very overprotective mother. I also travel a lot for work. Well, my job had me coming into town, so my mom could see me. I had a meeting after at the time I said I was done and I texted her. She kept calling me during the whole meeting, despite me sending a message that I couldn't talk because I was in a meeting. When I'm finally done and about to call her, another coworker tells me that my mom is looking for me. She had came down to the place I was working, wandering the outside looking for me. When I called her, she said she was in tears and worried over me. The next day, she asked if she could install an app to track my cell phone, but I told her that I didn't feel comfortable with that and had hoped that she would leave it, but she kept pushing it until I said no. She keeps trying to coax me into it, getting into claiming that it would be used for emergencies. I said that was a slippery slope and I know her, and it's going to reach a point where just emergencies turn into full-blown tracking my every single movement. She argued that she's getting better at not being so protective because she's going to therapy, so I told her, how about you ask your therapist what they think about her tracking me? Well, at this point, she keeps bringing it up and I'm honestly growing tired. I'm wondering if I should just give in and put an end to this annoyance, but at the same time, I feel like that's enabling her. So I'm honestly at such a loss and I seriously now don't know what to do. Yeah, your mom's being super obnoxious. She wants to track you all because she couldn't find you that one day. Meanwhile, you're a 28-year-old woman who literally works for a living. Not to mention that she showed up at your place of employment. Like, that is so weird to me, it's not even funny. It is super inappropriate and it makes you look incredibly unprofessional. So I know if I was in your shoes, no matter what my mom would say, there's no way I would allow her to track me on my phone. That's a massive invasion of privacy, and as an adult, there's just no need for that. And I think, in my opinion, if you did give into that, this persistent annoyance would only continue to get worse. And I just don't think you deserve that kind of treatment. I'm moving out with my girlfriend against my parents' wishes. And even though they've expressed their displeasure of me moving out and possibly moving to Canada, I'm deciding to go ahead and move out for 3 months anyways. But I'm honestly so stressed out about ruining my relationship with my parents that I'm seriously unsure of what to do next. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I'm a 24-year-old male, and I'm an Australian-born Chinese only child, with my parents being Chinese immigrants themselves. I've been with my girlfriend for 6 months now, and we love each other so much. Recently, I've been having troubles with my girlfriend because of the problems that I have with my relationship with my parents. My girlfriend is originally from Canada, but she came here to Sydney to study, and she is staying here to study for the next 3 years. She says that she might consider moving back to Canada if she cannot sustain living here, since she has more opportunities for her there. And I was pretty willing to move there with her after 3 years if things still went well. However, my Asian parents both expressed their disapproval of me immigrating to Canada. They said they were tolerant of other things, but this was the only thing they didn't didn't want me to do. I discussed options for them, but they wouldn't budge on it. So when I told my girlfriend about it, she felt upset since she thinks I choose them over her. This problem led to her being more distant from me, and I could see that she was disappointed about it. However, I am willing to move out with her, but even then, I still feel slight guilt about leaving my parents behind. They told me one of the main reasons they didn't want me to move out was because they would have no one to take care of them if they had any illness or injuries as they got older. They've also said things like, "We've raised you for 24 years and now you want to leave after everything we've done for you and we've taken care of you," and all this other stuff. But fast forward to today, and I'm now planning on moving out with my girlfriend to her place in Sydney for a little bit, and this is going to be for at least 3 months. I will be moving my stuff over quietly overnight and plan to leave on Monday and stay over at hers. I will leave a note behind saying that I am moving out and to only contact me if there is an emergency. But a part of me still feels that guilt of leaving them behind right now. They've still been taking care of me, well, more so my mom, who always treats me well even to this day. She would ask me what's wrong and give her advice on things as well. I want to know if anyone else has ever faced something similar to this and what exactly I should be doing here. Am I doing the right thing here? Or are there other options that I can possibly consider? I love my girlfriend so much, but my relationship with my parents has been affecting ours too much. I just feel guilt over leaving my parents, and I guess mostly for my mom, since she's been so caring to me all the way up until this day. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, the first thing I would really want to know is if I really like this girl or not. Like, you're talking about not only moving to another country, but literally moving to another hemisphere to be with this lady. Like, do you really like this woman? Because if you don't really like her, moving out like that would probably be a really bad idea. I'm not saying don't do it, I just think you need to be really careful because things could be so much different the second you move in together. So it is kind of nice to see that you're going to spend 3 months together in Sydney and at least have some kind of trial run of you guys living together and experiencing each other's company in like a full-time manner. Now, when it comes to your family being upset that you're going to be moving out, I mean, honestly, what were they expecting? Were they expecting you to live at home for the rest of your life and stay around them all the time forever? Like, that just doesn't seem reasonable in my opinion. But I think your parents' concerns about your girlfriend are also valid. You've only known her for 6 months, and for you to suddenly move out and go to Canada, that's like a big step. So in my opinion, I think you just need to be careful regardless of what you do, because this is a big step no matter what, and I think you at least owe it to yourself to carefully consider your options moving forward. Am I the jerk for not forcing my family to share their inheritance with my children? Because right now, they're upset, as well as my ex-wife, who's also upset. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I have 2 kids. I have a 14-year-old male and a 16-year-old female. And I also have an ex by the name of Tammy. Tammy is not her real name. According to the divorce decree, neither one of us can take the kids out of state without prior written consent from the other. Now, this was fine for the most part, as neither Tammy or I had any desire to go through any more hassle of co-parenting than we already do. However, my father recently passed away. It wasn't a shock because he was sick for a long time, so while I was sad he was gone, I was also relieved he wasn't suffering anymore. About 50 years ago, my father came to America, got an education, and made something of himself, but always missed his home country. When it was determined that there was nothing more that could have been done for him, my father wanted to spend his last year in his home country. My sister happily obliged my father's wishes and quit her job to go with him and help with his care. My brother, my other sister, and I would also take at least one trip over to see him. Then the holidays came around, and my father really wanted to see all of his grandchildren together one last time. My brother and other sister were able to bring their kids over, but when I brought this up to Tammy, which was 3 months ago by the way, she said she'd have to think about it. I gave her as much time as I could, but flights overseas during the holidays were expensive, so when I asked her again, Tammy said she needed more time. I asked how much more time did she actually need, and that led to a fight, and Tammy ended up saying that she wouldn't agree. She also got to my kids and said that they didn't want to go either, citing that they don't speak the language and how they shouldn't have to be inconvenienced just because their grandfather decided to leave the country. Now, I was upset, but I let it go, and I could tell my dad was a little hurt that the kids didn't come. He tried to video chat them twice, but got no response. We had one final dinner together where my dad made a speech about how grateful he was for his family and discussed his will. Aside from my sister who took care of him, the majority of his financial estate would go to his grandkids, and he would be leaving the rest of us sentimental things, which we were all really cool with. He passed a few weeks weeks later, and at the reading of the will, my brother and other sister's kids got a decent size of the trust fund, whereas my kids weren't mentioned at all. I did bring this up once, and my sister said that our dad really was hurt, that he wasn't worth a video call in his final moments, and only opted to leave them sentimental things. When my kids found out, they were furious, and Tammy demanded that I sue my sister or my nieces and nephews, but I refused. My kids see this as me putting someone else before them, as well as punishing them for not agreeing to go, but I don't see it that way at all. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like literally, what he puts in his will is completely up to your dad. You have no control over that, and he could have done that for literally anybody. Also, the only reason Tammy's getting upset about this is because she doesn't have the chance to try and mooch off of her family. Like she only wanted her kids to get some of that money because she wanted to try and take that for herself. Like Tammy has some very jaded motivations in my opinion, and there's no way I would trust her disagreement in the slightest. So no, of course you're not the jerk here. Tammy's being weird and your kids are kind of reaping what they sow, because the least they could have done was at least go for some kind of video chat, because that really would have been the bare minimum, and if they're unhappy with that, then that honestly is their own fault. My boyfriend wants me to move in with him, but I honestly don't want to, especially considering that his dad would also still be living there, and he is incredibly obnoxious and very strict with his house rules, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 2 years now, and we have started discussing moving in together. I want to save money and buy a house in the next 1 to 2 years. However, he wants to buy his house that he and his dad live in and flip the house. So he has no plan of moving out of his childhood home anytime soon. For reference, his dad has a heart condition that limits his ability and is likely going to pass away in the future. He's doing just fine now with regular medication and doctor's visits, but he is limited in his abilities. The house has $60,000 left, and it's paid off plus around $15,000 in back taxes his dad has. My issue isn't that he wants to buy his house, but it's that I don't want to live with his dad, as I find it incredibly weird, and that I would have to tiptoe around him in the house. His dad is a big-time hoarder and very super strict about throwing stuff away or how the house stuff is used at all. Let me just give you some examples to try and illustrate this. If I throw away, let's say, a paper towel in the recycling bin, he will come tell me that it's not on the list and I need to check with him before throwing stuff away. Or I used a regular pan to cook onions and he freaked out because that pan is only used for eggs. He has also had an issue with the fact that I use too much toilet paper, for crying out loud. This past summer, I tried helping clean up the yard because my boyfriend works too much and his dad's heart condition doesn't allow him to do any yard work. So I started cleaning up the yard. His dad gave me the tools to do it, and so I took out a wild berry bush that was infested in the planter. Well, his dad lost his mind because I took out the berries in the plant. I have explained to my boyfriend that I do not want to move into the house with his dad living there, and he just thinks that I just need to respect his dad's wishes and all will be fine. Now, respect is one thing I can understand, but his demands are entirely unreasonable. He has no interest in moving out, and I don't want to live separately for our entire relationship. So I honestly feel so stuck, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, that is an environment I would not want to live in at all. Like, your boyfriend is basically being like, oh, come on, move in with us. You only have to listen to my adult father all the time. For reference, both of these people are 23 and 22 years old, and in my opinion, that's definitely old enough to make your own decisions. Like, I don't know about you, but as an adult, I don't like getting bossed around by another adult. And I can guarantee you, if you moved into that house with your boyfriend and his dad, there's no way you would ever have any kind of freedom. It also doesn't help that this guy's like a massive hoarder. He saves things and keeps it off to the side pretty much all the time, and that in and of itself would be incredibly obnoxious. So no, I don't blame you for not wanting to move in with him, because what you're describing, in my opinion, sounds incredibly obnoxious. Am I the jerk for telling my dad I'm pregnant without my stepmom also being present? Because right now she is very upset with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of backstory, my mom passed away unexpectedly when I was 20 years old. I lived with my dad and I helped him through everything until I was 26 years old. Him and I grew very close in this time, and this is also when he met my now stepmother. They married 6 months after they met, and me and my siblings were not happy about it. We were all very close at the time and advised my dad to just wait. He simply stated that they were older, with the both of them being in their late 50s, and they knew what they wanted. He stated that we would have time to get to know her more after they got married. Now, let me preface this by saying that I don't hate my stepmother. She can be very sweet and thoughtful, and my dad is very happy. everybody. However, she has always had this expectation that we would all have this amazing relationship with her and that we would be best friends. She really likes to give advice freely to everybody, and she does this quite often. I know my siblings feel the same way, and she and my dad always say they don't expect me to treat her like my mom or have that kind of relationship, but I feel like they do actually expect that. I'm now 29 years old, and I'm married, and my dad and her have been together for a little over 4 years. A couple of months ago, my dad sat me down and told me all the ways that I had recently offended my stepmom by comments that I've made or things I sent to her on social media. Now, for reference, this isn't the first time that this has happened, and also, I've only sent stuff to her on social media that I thought was funny. They weren't meant to target her or anything like that. Apparently though, for months, she has just been keeping a checklist of everything I have done that has ever made her upset in the slightest. Now, instead of her talking to me directly about it, my dad came to me to have this discussion. I told him I never wanted to be offensive or hurt her feelings, and that the videos that I sent were just jokes. And apparently, this has been happening with my sister as well. All my siblings now feel a strain in their relationships with my dad. Well, fast forward and I find out that I'm pregnant. We were going to wait to tell my dad, but I was too excited. So one day when he came over unexpectedly, I just told him right there on the spot. My husband wasn't there, but he really wasn't that upset about it at all. I will admit I did kind of want the opportunity to tell my dad without my stepmom present, because she can be really overbearing and give all the advice she has. She really has a tendency to take over the conversations. But again, I hadn't really planned on telling him that day. Well, my dad's reaction was very unenthusiastic. It's going to be his first grandchild, so I thought he would maybe be a little bit more excited. I told him he can't tell anyone yet, and he said he wanted to tell his wife, and I said that wasn't a problem for me. That night, she called and congratulated my husband and I. Well, a couple days later, I get a call from my dad telling me how offended his wife was because she was not included in being told. Then he said to me, "Well, wouldn't you want your mom to know?" And when he said that, I absolutely lost it. We eventually ended the conversation with me telling him that she needs to talk to me directly if she's got a problem. I reached out to her saying that I didn't mean to upset her and that we should talk, and she just hasn't replied. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your stepmom is being really petty and only goes through your father to try and resolve any supposed issues. And these really are supposed issues. It seems like she's cherry-picking any problem she has with you while also refusing to talk to you like an adult. And the fact that your dad and stepmom would expect you to treat your stepmother like some kind of actual mother figure in your life, in my opinion, is incredibly rude and very intrusive. That lady is not your mom. Your mom passed away when you were 20 years old. This isn't a scenario where you grew up suddenly with a stepmom at the age of 6 years old. Like your dad literally remarried later in life when you're definitely an established adult. So it's completely unreasonable for anyone to be like, yeah, that's your mom now, you gotta treat her as such. So no, with all things considered, you are definitely not the jerk. The stepmom seems incredibly petty, and if I was in your shoes, I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. My entitled mother, who I went no contact with, suddenly shows up to my private birthday party, demanding that I come home to her and leave my grandmother, despite the fact that she surrendered legal custody of me over to my grandma. And I'm honestly still shaken up by the way she acted, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm gonna need to give some backstory because there's a lot to take in. For starters, I was parentified and forced to devote 99% of my free time to my younger brother. I then got fed up and ran to my grandmother, and my parents eventually surrendered legal custody of me over to her. There's a lot more I could talk about, but this is essentially the basics. But to jump to the present day, things have been going smoothly. I'm doing well in school, and I'm taking some extracurriculars such as robotics and the debate team, and I still have time to read and hang out with friends. I have started to communicate with my dad as well. Never in person, but it's just over the phone, and this was my decision. And it's mostly just small talk. I talk about school and classes, and he gives me updates on my little brother, who we will call Matt. Matt is not his real name. Now, it's important to note, I've not said a word to my mother directly since the day custody was given to my grandmother. The last time we spoke, my dad told me that Matt had finally realized that I was no longer around and became more agitated. They hired a nanny to help out, but both my parents were still forced to cut back their hours, and that was about a week and a half ago. Well, this past Saturday, I had my dream birthday party, which was themed after books. My birthday cake looked like a stack of books, snacks were themed after literary genres, and everyone came dressed as a book character. I came in dressed as Sherlock Holmes. We had a very cozy venue all to ourselves, and it was great. It was a very chill and and very relaxed party. My grandmother hired security for the party with a strict list of who was allowed. This was due to a couple of bullies at school who heard about my party and threatened to crash it. The party ended after a few hours and most of the guests left. The ones left were my grandmother, myself, one of the guards, and my two closest friends. I excused myself to go to the restroom, and when I came out, one of my friends met me halfway down the hall. She tried to push me back into the restroom, saying my mother had shown up and was demanding to see me. Now, here's the thing. I told nobody from my family about this party. Not my dad, not even the family members who supported me. And this is because of this exact possibility. I also didn't post about it on social media. I heard yelling from my grandmother and decided to confront the situation myself. The security guard was holding my mother back, and my grandmother was livid. The second my mother saw me, she became irate, screaming that I was a disgrace, that she was never going to let me just cut her off, and if I knew what was good for me, I would come home. But here's the thing, I didn't feel scared or even angry. I was just tired. So I kind of let out a sigh. I pulled out my phone and told her I was calling the police. It was up to her if she stayed to face them, but either way, I was filing a no contact order. Well, when I said that, she went pale. She screamed at me one last time and then ran off. She then got into her car and then sped away. I was glad it didn't happen during the party, but it kind of left me shaken. Needless to say, my grandmother and I will be speaking to our attorney tomorrow. I'm still not sure how she found out about the party, which is what spooks me the absolute most. I mean, do entitled parents like her just have some ability that lets them repeatedly attempt to screw up their kids' lives? I'm starting to feel like I'll have to watch out for my mom for the rest of my life, and I'm honestly so sick of it, and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, that really is awful. And it really does sound like the mom in this situation is a massive piece of garbage. From what the original poster has described and went on to explain, this lady is completely obnoxious, and it was very necessary for her to separate from this mom, which is altogether just really sad. Like, the original poster in this scenario probably would have wanted, in some kind of alternate universe, to have their parents involved in this fun party, but because of their past of being absolutely awful, as well as straight up neglecting the original poster, it simply made it impossible for them to ever be involved in this person's life. So honestly, to the original poster, I'm so sorry this happened, and I totally understand where you're coming from, because I would have been creeped out as well if my family member who I intentionally don't want to talk to somehow found out about my private party, and the fact that she showed up and yelled at you is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to cover my scar and wearing a bikini as it triggered my friend? Because right now she's upset with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female, and I had a cancer scare a few years back and had a biopsy done on my upper leg. The scar has now faded, but it is still fairly noticeable, and it's about 7 centimeters long. Thankfully, it was only a scare and nothing came of it. For a while, I was insecure about it and stopped wearing skirts or tight leggings where you could see the outline of the scar, but now that I've accepted that it's gonna be there forever, I started to wear whatever, and I realized nobody cares about it apart from the odd question. Well, we went to the beach yesterday as a friend group, and I decided to wear a bikini. I was excited to get a tan, and my friend Anna brought her other friend by the name of Dana. I have met her before, but don't know her very well. However, I do know she started a fundraiser for her mom who is fighting cancer right now. Dana's family situation is quite difficult as her dad passed away recently, and her mom has stage 4 cancer. So needless to say, Dana is juggling quite a lot. I came earlier than Anna and Dana, so I was already in my bikini when they joined us, and Dana was nice to me and asked me about my new job. Then Anna went to say hi to the others, and Dana mentioned my scar and recognized that it was a biopsy. She then said something to me that honestly blew my mind. She asked me if I could wear a beach cover-up and that it was triggering to her and very insensitive of me as I know her mom is going through it right now. Well, I said no, I'm here to get a tan, and the cover-up will ruin that. Well, Dana didn't say anything, but she also didn't talk to me for the rest of the day. Well, fast forward to today, and Anna texted me telling me that Dana told her what happened, and while she agrees that Dana's comment was weird, she thinks that I should have given her a free pass as she is not in the best place mentally right now. But I said it was really weird, and no, I wouldn't. Now, I genuinely don't think I'm in the wrong, and I think she's just being really weird about the whole situation. Obviously, if I'm in the wrong, I want to apologize. So I seriously need to know, am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. I don't think that you're in the wrong for wearing a bikini and being proud of something that you were previously insecure about. Like, for starters, spoilers, it's none of Dana's business how you got that scar on your leg, and for her to seriously try to control your behavior as if you're triggering her in some kind of way, while also being like, wow, you're insensitive for not covering up. Like that, in my opinion, is very obnoxious behavior, and that is so unbelievably uncalled for, it's not even funny. If someone has a trigger, guess what? That is your responsibility to manage. If someone doesn't follow some hidden protocol that they don't know about, then that's your job to deal with that personally, and not something you should try to enforce on other people just to try and be controlling and weird about it. Now, there's obviously nuances here, but for her to be like, wow, you are really insensitive for having a scar, and you're really triggering me right now, especially with my mom. Meanwhile, the original poster came there to wear a bikini and get a tan. They weren't going there to try and trigger Dana, and for them to imply that that's exactly what they were doing is really uncalled for. So I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think Dana was completely out of line for the way she acted, and it is definitely not your job to manage someone else's emotions. Am I the jerk for ordering spicy food that my husband can't eat? Because right now, it's causing major problems in my house, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I've been with my 28-year-old husband for 9 years, and we've been married for 2 years this summer. We have a daughter who is 7 years old, and we rarely even fight. And if we do, it has been more major and serious things. But this, what to me was a small issue, is now turning into the biggest argument we have ever had. So the problem is that me and our daughter love spicy food. I always have, and ever since I felt comfortable with her trying it, she has loved it as well. Sure, we couldn't compete in a spice eating contest, and even though our tolerance is high, it is not extreme, but my husband absolutely hates it. He is one of those people who thinks spice is unnecessary and only likes to use salt and pepper. Now, this is not a problem. Sometimes I make a batch that suits his taste, and then another one for me and our daughter. Sometimes me and our daughter will just eat how it is to his liking, as too little spices is easier to handle than to have too much as it would be for him. Now, this Saturday, he was away with friends to go pick up some car parts. It was a 12-hour drive in total, and they left at about 9 o'clock. I went ahead and ordered from an Indian place that our daughter has as her favorite. My husband also likes this place and just orders something mild when he eats from there. Since my husband was not home, I did not order him anything as I thought that they would have eaten it on the road. When he got home, he greeted us, then immediately went to the fridge and saw some boxes left of food. But when he opened them, he obviously noticed that he could not eat any of them. Now, when he saw this, we argued for about 5 minutes. The consensus of the argument was him saying that I should have either thought about him and ordered something for him, or I should have asked him if he had eaten anything or just wanted anything. But I argued that I probably would have done so if it was just a few hours that he was away. But he was away for over 12 hours and came home about 4 hours after we usually eat. So I assumed that he had eaten something in the process. Now he has barely talked. He cooked dinner for himself because, in his words, I can't be bothered. He texted me from the living room when I was cooking for me and our daughter that he hoped I was happy to have my food my way. He is extremely weird about this, and he has never acted this way about something like this, and I'm getting even more confused by it all. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, so for starters, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you're just getting food that you enjoy, and he's upset that he can't have it as well. The food you and your daughter like is clearly too spicy for him to handle, and that is clearly something that's bothering him to some degree. But with that in mind, like, what in the world were you supposed to do? Were you supposed to read his mind on his 12 hours on the road? Were you supposed to know just all of a sudden that he wanted something and that he didn't eat something on his way back to your house? Like, your husband's acting like you don't think about him at all, but in reality, you've made a lot of accommodations to help him out, and it really seems like he's not acknowledging that in the first place. Like, what happened to just straight up communication from your husband? Like, why not just say something instead of being weird about it? So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your husband's being very weird about all this, and I think if he really wanted some food, he definitely should have spoken up. My entitled roommate stays up all night long, then has the audacity to complain that other people are complaining about her. And I'm honestly so annoyed at my roommate, and I truly hope that she finally just shuts up. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a college student, and along with that comes my roommate. Now, unfortunately, the dorm rooms are all thinly walled, meaning our neighbors can hear even the slightest noises. My roommate has a new boyfriend who she likes talking to, but she talks to him late at night. Our hall has quiet hours that begin at 10 o'clock p.m., meaning the noise has to be kept to a minimum, or you might get in trouble for being too loud. It starts with a warning, then it moves up to fines, then after this is termination of the housing contract. She has gotten a warning from our neighbors a couple of times previously, and even had to go talk to the hall director once directly. And yet, with all this in mind, she got all mad when she now has to pay a fine because she was up until 12:30 p.m. talking talking to her boyfriend on speakerphone. For context, she is a loud talker to begin with, and her whisper sounds more like a regular speaking voice, which I have no problem with. I mean, I am the same way. However, not only did she complain to me, she complained to the neighbors that told on her. Now she is not in good standing with them either. She told me that she was going to go to the housing directors and file a complaint against our hall director, as well as our neighbors, because they make her feel that she does not have any freedom in her own room. Now, at this point, I don't know how this is gonna go over, and I seriously don't know what to do. This is funny to me because your roommate sounds incredibly spoiled. They sound like one of those people who literally had no responsibility growing up, and they also never owned up to anything wrong that they did. And here's the thing, I know exactly what they're talking about here when they're saying the walls are thin and you can literally hear everything. So for her to be going on and on at midnight of all times, and then turning around and being like, wow, I can't believe anybody told on me. It's like, seriously, what are you talking about? You can't be so loud all night and expect people not to get upset. So hopefully the message that your roommate is being way too loud finally sinks in, because based on what you're describing, she sounds absolutely obnoxious, and I truly feel so sorry that you've got to put up with her in the first place. Am I the jerk for calling the police on some parents after they leave me with their kids until 6 in the morning without letting me know exactly where they are? Because right now I'm being called a jerk as they claim that their phones died and they had no way of getting in contact with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I was asked to sit for a date night while the parents went to a wedding yesterday. I was supposed to watch a baby boy that was 13 weeks old, as well as his sister who's 2 years old, and this was going to be from 5 o'clock until 11 o'clock p.m. This is also not my first time watching either of these children. Now, our evening went as smooth as it could with a toddler and a baby. I got them to bed by 7:30 and started putting the house back together. At 10:15 p.m., I got a text from the parents asking if I could stay until 12 o'clock p.m., and I told them that's fine and to have fun. Well, 12:15 rolls around and I haven't heard from the parents. I sent a text asking if they're close and I didn't get a response. I can be pretty anxious, so my mind started thinking that they got into an accident or something bad happened. I didn't hear from them for about 5 minutes, and then I decided to call, but I still got no answer. Fast forward to 1 in the morning, and the baby has already woken up to feed again, and I'm just overly anxious at this point. It's 1 in the morning, and I have no one to call to calm me down. I would never assume that a late parent is just a late parent at 1 in the morning, so I am just on our city's Twitter page where they will let you know about road conditions and accidents, and I'm trying to see if anything happened within the last hour and a half, but nothing comes up. 2 o'clock in the morning rolls around, and I kid you not, I have called around 15 times and received no answer from either parent. I wanted to call the police at this point, but also didn't want the kids woken up and taken out of the house at 2 in the morning. I was hoping that the parents would walk in, and although I would be angry, I would know that at least they're fine. But again, that did not happen. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I finally decided to call the police and report the parents missing, and I told them that I couldn't keep them after having them all night. The police showed up at 5:22 in the morning and took a statement from me. I was asked for the parents' numbers, and the police asked if I could stay with the kids until they figured out exactly what to do. Well, at this point, the neighbors are outside, and the woman directly next door told me that she could stay with them. But I didn't know their relationship to her, so I told her I'd wait with the kids just for a little bit longer. Finally, at 5:48 in the morning, they roll up and are greeted by the police. The mom ran into the house thinking something had happened to the kids, but then she sighed when she saw why they were there. She said to me, "Our phones died and we didn't know how to get home from the venue." And when she said that, I was fuming. I called them irresponsible and the worst parents I've ever worked for. I demanded that she pay me on the spot, and then I left. I then got a long message about how this is my job and I'm such a huge jerk for disrespecting them, as well as for calling the police. She felt like I could have left them with the neighbors or called the emergency contacts and not the police. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not only not the jerk in this scenario, but the parents are some of the worst parents I think I've ever heard of in my life. Like literally, these people suck completely. For starters, they tried to extend your stay at their house by an hour, and then they extended that for literally the entire night. Like these morons didn't show up until 6 in the morning, and somehow that's your fault when you're freaking out not knowing what to do. Which, by the way, in my opinion, I think you did the right thing. Calling the police and getting them involved truly was the right move to make, especially when the parents aren't answering their stupid phones. Like for them to try and twist this around and be like, no, this is your fault. How dare you call the police on us? It's like, lady, what are you talking about? You are 100% at fault, and you are a terrible mother for letting this happen. If their phones actually died and they didn't have any power, then they should have gone to some store that's open and bought a charger. Like, I'm pretty sure most gas stations, at least in America, would have some kind of cheap charger they could get to at least bring their phone back to life. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. The parents in this are absolutely incredibly irresponsible, and I just can't imagine trying to blame you for trying to be safe. I don't want to go on a family trip, all because last year when we went on this trip, it was an absolute nightmare for me. And right now, my husband is saying that if I'm not going, then he wants to take our son with him, which is an idea that I'm completely opposed to. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my partner is in a car club, and every alternate year they do a long weekend trip. And this is somewhere across the country, which normally involves a lot of travel. The schedule is really full, with lots of events starting early and gala dinners and award nights, so it goes quite late. Now, we as a family went on one in 2022 when our son was just 1 year old. To say the trip was a disaster was an understatement. I spent the majority of the time by myself with our son, while my partner and his family were off doing the car events. I had to travel by myself, including a flight with a layover and hire a car, and our son didn't sleep well. He was teething and away from his normal home and routine, so I was running off of like no sleep for nearly 5 days, which I had to deal with alone because he had big days ahead of him. So you can probably pick up that I was super uncomfortable and very stressed out. My partner has now said that the car club has announced the dates for this year, and he wants us to go as a family. It is a 4 to 5 hour drive, and our son will be 3 years old. His car needs to be show ready and would not fit the car seat, as well as the particoat, luggage, car cleaning and polishing kit, as well as any potential roadside repair kit. Basically, it's a classic car, so it has no air conditioning, and also as a classic car, suspension isn't great, so on long, windy, bumpy trips, I definitely get car sick. So I will have to take our son in my own car and drive there and back on my own. Now, I've said I don't want to go, and to be honest, I still haven't forgotten how terrible the last trip was. He thinks that I'm being unreasonable, and I just need to get over it because it's a fun thing to do as a family. He's also said that if I don't go, he wants to take our son, which I don't agree with either. They have fully booked days and events going into the night, so I don't understand logistically how he's going to look after our son, and I absolutely do not want him to be left with someone that we don't know to look after him while he goes out. He thinks I'm not being supportive and missing out on an opportunity to spend quality time together, but I seriously do not see it that way. So honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk for not wanting to go to this car club trip, or for even wanting my partner to take my son? What should I do? No, I definitely do not think you're the jerk at all for not wanting to go to this trip. Like literally last time you had to do all of this by yourself. Like your husband's going off and partying and doing all this other fun stuff while you're literally running on no sleep, you're taking care of your son, and you're handling all this other logistical stuff that is truly a nightmare. Like this guy just does not respect the fact that you did so much to make sure that he was happy at that trip, because you very easily could have flipped a switch and said to him, okay, it's your turn to take over, and then went off to leave him with your kid, who by the way is really cranky and got no sleep. So no, I don't blame you at all for being like, nope, I'm not gonna go with you this time. I have ridden that circus and I'm not doing it again. But on the subject of him taking his son with him to this trip, I can understand your concerns, but also I think it would be really funny if he did actually take your son, and then he would be solely responsible for taking care of his son and getting a very serious taste of his own medicine right there at this party. And sure, I understand all of your concerns about not wanting your son to go with your husband to this event, but it also would be a fantastic way to see revenge take its course and basically remind your husband of all the good that you do in his life. But overall, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think it's completely reasonable for you to say, no, I'm going to sit this one out. And in my opinion, if your husband really wants to take his son with him on this trip, then I think if I was in your shoes, I would allow it to happen and willingly let chaos unfold. An entitled family lets their kids run loose in our restaurant, constantly getting in the way while also causing our serving staff to drop food and water on the ground. But it all came to a head when my coworker stepped in and told off the party that had all these kids running around, saying that they were awful parents and that if they couldn't watch their kids, then they should leave the restaurant. And as a result, the mother of the kids ran out of the restaurant crying. And I'm honestly still in shock of everything that my coworker did to put this entitled family in their place. Here's what happened. Okay, so my coworker, who we will call Tatiana, that's not her real name, made a woman at my table cry and leave the restaurant. For some background, I work at a huge restaurant in the Florida Keys, and we are very busy because our restaurant is one of the few on the island able to take big groups. So when a party of 15 come in, it's honestly no big deal. Although this party had 8 kids ages ranging from 3 to 9 years old. Everything is going smoothly in the beginning. The parents are consistently ordering rounds of drinks, they're ordering expensive food, and they're pretty nice people even though they are a little needy. The only issue was the kids as they began to run around the entire restaurant. This is pretty normal because, well, they are children, and with 8 of them, it is pretty hard to keep all of them sitting at a table at once. However, the parents were not stopping them or even watching them as they began to run into our food runners and servers, which did cause one waitress to drop a tray of waters, which is not a huge deal, but still, it shouldn't have happened. At this point, the waitstaff became frustrated with the behavior of the parents for not stepping in and trying to settle the kids down, or at least watch them in some kind of way. However, they were about to pay, so we only had to deal with it for a little bit longer. Now, before I share what happened next, you should have a little bit of background information on one of our waitresses. We'll call her Tatiana, and she is a red-headed Russian woman with a very thick accent who chain smokes and has only lived in America for maybe 3 years. Therefore, she's very bold and a little forward with her comments sometimes. As the group of 15 pay their tab, they apologize for the kids running around and say thank you as this is their first vacation with all the kids and felt as though they finally got time to relax. As the parents are finishing their drinks before heading out, Tatiana finds one of the kids on the opposite side of the restaurant near our back wait station. She grabs the little girl by the arm and walks her over to the table. She could have just brought the girl back and not said a word, but that is not Tatiana. She proceeds to find the girl's mother, who is obviously very pregnant, and says to her something that really blew my mind. She said, "You need to be a better mother. I just found her over there and you don't even care. Your kids have been running around for over an hour. Keep them in line or leave this restaurant." Well, the woman was mortified when she heard this and began crying as the other adults at the table are sitting in shock over what was just said. The crying woman immediately got up and quickly walked out of the restaurant as I was walking over to the table to ask if everything was okay, and I did not know at all what Tatiana had just said. After the other adults angrily told me, I found my manager, who then rushed to catch the lady and try to reconcile the situation. The group explained they will not be coming back to this restaurant and recommended that we fire Tatiana for her atrocious words. Now, when it comes to Tatiana, she wasn't written up, fired, or sent home for the night. The case she made for herself to the manager was that the kids were disrupting the restaurant workers and the other customers, and that she was worried for the safety of the kids too. Our restaurant is waterfront with accessible boardwalks, so they could have fallen into the water, gotten a tray dropped on them, or could have ended up in our busy parking lot because we are a tiki restaurant with many different exit points. But it honestly leaves me with a serious question. Should Tatiana have been reprimanded for what she said to the pregnant woman, or did she do the right thing by standing up for the rest of the customers and waitstaff? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to think. Okay, your coworker Tatiana is my hero because she said the quiet part out loud for all of us. The family in this story absolutely needed to be better parents, and they need to do a better job of keeping their kids in line. Because honestly, all of her points are valid. That child could have gotten really hurt, she could have run into the kitchen and gotten hurt, or taken out by a car in the parking lot. Like seriously, there's so many things that could have gone wrong. And sure, Tatiana was probably frustrated, and her reasoning for telling off this family was probably multifaceted, but those points that she made legitimately, in my opinion, completely justifies the way she talked to this family. They were not watching their kids, and it was a detriment to literally everybody in the restaurant. And honestly, if that family never wants to come back, then in my opinion, good riddance. They were clearly just being a nuisance in the restaurant, and they were being incredibly disrespectful to everybody in there. So in my opinion, I don't think your coworker's the jerk at all, and I think she did the best thing for everybody in the restaurant. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled group of Karens complain about their food, claiming that there's hair all over their food and demanding that they get a discount on all the food that they got. Here's what happened. So this happened to me last night, and of course I'm coming here to brag about it because this was just absolutely hilarious. And this moment with my table has probably made my entire year. I work at a casual fine dining steakhouse, and the prices are a little bit high. And this is a situation where even 2 people could eat at our restaurant together, and the bill could be at least $100. Anyways, President's Weekend is always chaotic and extremely busy. I had a 6-top of these diva 18-year-olds come in, and from the start they were very rude and talking down to me because I'm a server. Now Now, I'm very non-confrontational. I just ignored it and kept pushing through. Things were going fine until towards the end when it was time to get their checks. Now, all of a sudden, there were just a list of complaints. They said to me, "There's hair everywhere. It's on my steak. It's on my napkins. It's on the table. This is so gross. I'm not paying for this." Then she picks up the hair from her steak and it's a brown hair. None of us at my restaurant have brown hair. I have red hair and most of us have black hair, with a few of us being blonde. But it does look like her hair though. But I really didn't care. I wasn't going to battle it as it wasn't my job, so I just told management. So management goes up to the table and she gives them the filet. Our filet is cheaper than our New York strip, and this will be important later on. Management doesn't feel like fighting her on it, so they comp off the filet. I drop off the bill and this lady is angry and starts arguing with me again. She says to me, "It wasn't the filet you took, it was the New York strip. I want the New York strip taken off." I tell her that my manager said it was the filet you gave him. So it was the filet he was going to take off the check. Now she's even more angry and says that my management doesn't know their cuts of meat, which is blatantly not true, as they definitely know what they're talking about, as do I. But nonetheless, I go back to my manager. At this point, he is completely done. He decides he's just going to leave the filet comped off, but he will discount the New York just to get them out of here, because at this point, I'm done and he's done with them. What he did was cheaper than just getting rid of the New York cut and adding the filet back, which was like over $20 cheaper. So I bring the new check and she's still upset because she doesn't want to pay for the New York strip at all. Then it starts happening. My other table has watched this from the beginning and they too have had enough. They literally yell at my table of divas, saying that that is absolutely ridiculous. The diva table wouldn't say a word to them, and my table of good Samaritans pulled me aside and they were telling me that if that table even looked at me wrong again, they were gonna go over there and teach him a lesson. And they said this loudly on purpose because they wanted the divas to hear it. I go to my manager and now he's really aggravated. He does exactly what the diva asked, and he removed the New York strip, but puts the filet back on and removes any discount off the check. And just like that, the bill goes up $25. Then I drop the check off and the diva takes a look at it, and she finally notices the increase in price. She then makes a very surprised face, but she just doesn't say anything. And I think it's because the other table scared her. They pay and leave me a $5 tip for the entire bill. My other table that screamed at this diva table joked with me after they left, and they left me enough as a tip to literally cover the divas and theirs. And I'm honestly so sick of dealing with entitled people like this. Yeah, that's so weird, because they literally could have taken the discount and then left the restaurant. But instead of doing like simple math, they decided to be difficult. And honestly, if you're not even gonna try to be halfway decent, then you deserve to get a higher price. And in my opinion, that is absolutely the reward that they deserve. My boyfriend is being way too lenient with his homeless friend who is currently staying in our spare room. And I'm honestly at a point where I want him gone, but I seriously am not sure how to go about doing it. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend has a friend from high school who is homeless and has been for a few years now. He keeps bouncing between different friends' houses, but he has stayed at ours the longest. He recently came back from Italy as he was staying with his mom, and I said yes to him staying, but said there had to be a deadline. My boyfriend agreed to this, and we told his friend he had 3 weeks to find a job as well as an alternative place to live. Now, it may sound like I'm being harsh, but he has stayed with us for months before and did absolutely nothing to better his situation during said times. He spent all of his money from the government on substances and was too high all day to apply for jobs or look at properties. My boyfriend even offered him a job at his workplace if he just filled out the application, and he failed to do this 3 different times. My boyfriend feels bad telling him that he has to go, and also says it's helpful having him to watch the dog if we go out. However, this friend creates more work for the both of us. I often finish work to find my benches covered in the herb and coffee, as well as urine on the bathroom floor and mud all over the rugs, because he didn't take his shoes off after being outside. He also leaves his clothing, his mugs, and plates everywhere. He does tidy up if I tell him to, but I'm honestly sick of having to tell him. The icing on the cake happened this week. He agreed to give us about $200 a month for the room, utilities, food, and clothing being washed, but he only gave us $100. And this was because he failed to turn up to his appointment with the job center, with his excuse being that it was raining and my boyfriend was using the car, so his money was completely stopped. However, he magically found about $180 just so he could buy a big bag of the herb the next day. It's been a month now and he's only viewed 1 property. He hasn't applied for any jobs and hasn't applied for college. He has no qualifications, and since I'm a teacher, I offered to tutor him for free just to get him his English and math scores so he could apply to a local college. He still has nowhere to go, and I don't want to kick him out onto the street, but I just feel like we're enabling him to do nothing. We have no idea how to go about doing these things, as he talks about the dangerous side of depression whenever we do approach this subject. So I'm honestly now completely at a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, from the sounds of it, in my opinion, it seems like this friend is manipulating you and your boyfriend. He is very clearly using you guys, and he just wants to live there for free, which is why he hasn't looked for a place to live or anything like that. And I just don't think that's fair at all. I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be putting my foot down and say to him that he has a hard cutoff by a certain time, and that he will be leaving on that day no matter what. Because doing anything other than that will only cause problems. If you're not firm and you don't tell him exactly what's going on, this guy will just keep living there no problem. He'll keep wasting his money on illegal substances and just completely get high all the time. So hopefully this goes well for you in figuring this out, because what you're dealing with right now sounds really annoying, and you definitely do not deserve to deal with this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling all of my friends and family the exact reason why my vacation home is off limits after my nephew started a kitchen fire and caused thousands of dollars worth of damage? Because I am still upset that my brother refuses to pay for that, despite the fact that his son is the reason that fire started in the first place. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I rent out my house through a service that includes insurance when it's in use. The insurance does not cover when I lend my house out to friends and family, since they are not paying to stay there. I have regular homeowners insurance for that. My brother was using my house with his family just after New Year's. It's a slow time, and I wasn't going to lose out on much income. My nephew stayed up late one night and didn't go out for breakfast with his family, so he decided to make himself some food. Well, long story short, he started a kitchen fire. He freaked out and called 911 instead of using the fire extinguisher in the kitchen. He is 14, so I can't blame him too much though. The smoke damage will cost about $8,000 to fix, and I told my brother he could take his time paying me back, but he said he wasn't going to pay for an innocent mistake. Now, I needed the house in order, so I just fixed everything. I didn't go through insurance since I do not want my rates to go up. I was obviously upset, so I posted about the fire and how upset I was at my brother, and pretty much all of my friends and family took the side of the innocent angel. They said it was unfair of me to expect that much money from him when he could have just rented a hotel for a fourth of the price. So, you know what? I agreed. I said that from now on, my house was off limits unless they rented it out, or I was there and they came as my guest. Since I only use the house with my family, that means they can rent it all or use the only empty bedroom, and that room has a twin bed and a crib. Now, the howling started that I'm being unfair to them for something that wasn't their fault. I offered to take up a collection from them to cover the repairs or the increased insurance premiums, and most of them just shut up. I directed them all to my brother, and he got quite angry with me for blaming him for the situation. I said I wasn't about to send a mob after my nephew. I bought the house after I got a settlement from a worksite accident. I used the income to supplement the difference in what I used to earn in my old job and what I do now. So I guess my question is, honestly, am I the jerk here? Am I in the wrong for telling anybody who has a problem with me charging rent to take those complaints over to my brother and talk to him about it? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. You are 100% justified for asking for rent and for directing all questions to your brother. In my opinion, your brother absolutely should have paid for all of that damage, and his stupid kid is 100% at fault. How on earth do you cause a kitchen fire like that and not know to try and put it out? You don't just stand by and let it go up in flames. Like, what are you doing? Get a fire extinguisher or some water or something. To sit there and be like, oh, I gotta call the police, and then not do anything about it is insane to me. Like, some common sense would have really gotten that kid a long way. And sure, it might sound like I'm being hard on a 14-year-old, but seriously, that is definitely old enough to know better. And at the bare minimum, not start a kitchen fire, for crying out loud. So no, you are not the jerk. These people have clearly taken advantage of your kindness and have denied any kind of help with paying for the stuff that they clearly destroyed. And in my opinion, if they really want to act like that, then they can go through the official means of renting that house if they really want to try and stay there. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my daughter as much as my son and refusing to supplement her checks so that they are equal? Because right now she is really upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my two oldest kids are in college and working part-time to earn some spending money. They live at home and we pay for their tuition, cars, insurance, and basically everything except for spending money. I have my own small construction company and I run a crew of about 15 men, including my son. Lately, we've been doing mostly roofing jobs. My son's job is to help take off the old shingles, put up any shingles that miss the dumpster, and help prep the roof. Once the installation starts, he delivers a steady stream of shingles, nails, and other materials to the nailers. It's a dangerous and hard job, so I pay him about $25 an hour. Now, my daughter works as a cashier, but most of the time she's standing at the self-checkout lanes and rarely works behind the register. She's paid about $15 an hour. Last weekend, my son bought his girlfriend a new iPhone for Valentine's Day and was talking about the restaurant he's going to take her to. Since it is an expensive phone and restaurant, my daughter asked where he's getting the money. That then led to how much I'm paying him, and she got mad. He's been working with me for about 4 months, but she's never shown any interest in what we do or asked anything about his job or pay, so it came as a surprise to her. The short version of a week-long argument in our house is that she thinks it's unfair he's making so much more than she is. I offered her the same hourly wage if she wants to join her brother on the roof, but she went once and didn't finish out the day. Instead, she wants to make up the difference between their paychecks. My wife thinks that I should come up with an easier job, like just let her pick up the shingles that miss the dumpsters. But I said that's an easy job, and I'm not paying her $25 an hour for a minimum wage job. I told her that she can make as much as her brother, but she doesn't want to carry heavy and dirty shingles. Well, now both women are giving me the silent treatment. My wife even went as far last night as to eat dinner with our daughter before my son, and I got home at 6 and later went to bed without saying a word to me all night. Now, for reference, my wife doesn't work. She stays at home and takes care of our younger kids. And when it comes to my company, it is a very small company. With 15 men, I have 2 crews on larger jobs or 3 on smaller jobs. There is no bookkeeping or other positions that she can do because I do those on the weekends. There's only the construction positions. None of our kids have any interest in taking over my company, and it'll close when I retire. Our son just got accepted into dental school, and our daughter is almost done with her education degree. But with all that in mind, I seriously need to know, am I the jerk for the way I explain this to my kids and my wife? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you explain this perfectly in my opinion. First of all, you have a small company. It's not like you have all these other positions available that your daughter can just suddenly fill to try and make that much money per hour. And also, your reasoning for why your son makes $25 an hour, in my opinion, is completely sound. This guy's working a dangerous job. He's working around debris as well as working on a roof, and he's doing all this stuff that is very high-skilled labor. Like, it is something that anybody could pick up and do, but it takes a lot of guts to get on that roof and be comfortable up there, while also still performing your job without like this fear of falling. I know for me personally, there's no way I would ever work on a roof because I have a massive fear of falling, so kudos to the original poster and his son for being so willing to do those jobs. So it honestly makes sense to me that your son would make more money than your daughter. And you know what? Being a cashier is incredibly easy. It is a very low-risk type of job, especially compared to what your son is doing every day. I mean, she's just standing at the self-checkout center, and that honestly kind of takes care of itself, and you're only really there if things go wrong. And I'm not saying that it's not an important job, but it is definitely a lot safer than what your son is currently doing. And in my opinion, if your job is dangerous like this job, then you absolutely should be financially compensated for that. And you know what? This also teaches a very valuable lesson for your daughter because it shows her quite blatantly that some jobs get paid a lot more than other jobs. Jobs in construction or other dangerous jobs that require a lot of skill to know what you're doing safely, those will typically be higher paying jobs. Whereas working at a grocery store or some kind of clerical position, it will usually be a little bit lower paying, and I'm more referring to like entry level more than anything else. And there really is nothing wrong with working at a grocery store as a cashier or working as like a bookkeeper or anything like that. Like seriously, it doesn't matter in my opinion. If you make ends meet and you're able to support yourself and your family, like seriously, who cares what you do? But this does shed a very serious spotlight that there are jobs that are higher paying, but they might just be a little bit more dangerous. So I think the fact that your wife and your daughter are giving you the silent treatment is really weird to me because I don't think you're the jerk and I don't think you deserve that in the slightest. My partner's entitled mother claims that she got me my job and that she should be praised and thanked for getting me a job. But aside from only telling me about the job itself, my partner's mom is absolutely delusional and I'm honestly at my wit's wit's end dealing with her weird attitude. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I took a huge step last year and I moved in with my long distance partner. My big focus when we moved into our apartment was securing a job. I'd been job hunting and sending in resumes and applications as early as a month before moving. But those of you who have been playing the job application game the past couple of years or so know exactly how bad the post-pandemic job market really is. I ended up finding and getting hired at a place within 6 weeks of moving into our apartment, which was really awesome. But how this came about has become quite a point of contention. I had originally considered the company that I know work for among the places I was applying, but I placed it lower on the list given they originally didn't list what they planned to pay, and I consider the commute to be too far to justify the gas. I was also worried it could be a waste of time, as too many businesses are claiming that they're desperately hiring nowadays, but then they never get back to you. About 3 weeks after moving in, my partner's parents stopped by. His mom was upset because she had stopped by the business before coming by and found it partially closed due to short staffing. She told me that I should go and apply. I told her I had considered and gave her the reasons why I had not yet applied, but decided to do so since it was clear they were actually in need of staff. Within 2 weeks of sending in my application, I was gotten back to, I was interviewed, and then I was hired. I ended up learning the pay and the benefits more than justified my commuting time, and I've been happily employed here ever since. But here's where the problems come in. My partner's mom constantly talks about how she got me that job. Anytime someone asked about my work in front of her and I respond positively, she reminds me that I should thank her, because without her, I wouldn't be so happy or paid so well. I mean, she never lets it go. She never fails to bring it up, and it's been driving me crazy lately. And while I've asked my partner to please speak to her about it, she still hasn't pulled back. I had a very long day yesterday, and I ended up snapping at her at the dinner table when she brought it up yet again. She said to me that I don't thank her enough for getting me that nice job. But I told her she did not get me that job. She did not work through my previous jobs, build my skills, or compile my resume for me. She didn't fill out my application, she didn't go to my interview, or go to my training. That was literally all on me. I told her I appreciate that she let me know they were understaffed and renewed my interest in applying, but the person who gets me my job and my money is me and me alone. Well, after I said that, she is now very unhappy and has called me disrespectful and says that I just have no respect for older people. My partner agrees with me that she's been pushing it too far, but wants me to try and make peace. But I honestly don't think that I should have to. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Am I justified for calling her out and saying exactly what I did? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. You are definitely not the jerk. Your partner's mom is absolutely obnoxious, and the fact that she's trying to take credit for you getting that job is so atrocious. Like, her frequency of reminding you in front of everybody has almost become like this weird, aggressive form of control where she's trying to put herself above you for some weird reason. Because you've got it right, she didn't do anything to get you that job. The only thing she did was point out that they're looking for people to work there, and that was literally it. So sure, she can take credit for tipping you off, but like, seriously, who would take credit for that? She's trying to equate that small act of like generosity as some kind of like groundbreaking moment where she can be like, ooh, you owe me so much. Now you have to respect me because I got one over on you. Like, that's really the attitude I'm getting from this lady, and it's really obnoxious. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your partner's mom is 100% at fault, and she didn't do a thing to help you out in the slightest. So I don't blame you for correcting her and putting a stop to this once and for all. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I'm thinking about calling off my wedding, all because of my fiance's comments about me bringing my son to live with me, because right now I'm completely devastated, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I lived in America up until I was 15 years old, and then my mom sent me to live with my dad in Guyana. I was originally supposed to live there until I was 18 years old, but I ended up coming back to New York when I was 24. During my time in Guyana, I had a son with my ex-girlfriend. I moved back to New York when he was 2 years old, and his mom and I decided it's best for him to stay with her in Guyana. It's better for him to know his culture and stay grounded. I have been back there many times to see him, and he's come to stay here with me as well. In the end, he was always supposed to come here to live with me, and this is where my fiance comes in. We've been together for 2.5 years, and she has met my son. I've always been very vocal about the fact that he's going to come and live with me, and this year is the year where he will permanently be moving moving here. He's going to come in the summer and then start his first year of middle school. Well, I started to notice her not being on board with the whole idea last year, which is right when I was looking for houses. I was thinking about moving somewhere nearby in New Jersey due to a better school system, but my fiance disagreed. There have been other pretty minimal things here and there since, but she's never outright said that he shouldn't come here, but has said things that heavily implied it. However, each time I ask her to further explain, it would end with the fact that she wants him here. Well, our wedding is literally 3 Saturdays from now, and yesterday she said explicitly that she does not want him to move in with us. We started arguing about something else that was pretty minimal, but it escalated to a bigger discussion about our future, and that's when she said that she prefers if he remains with his mom. Her main reasoning was that she didn't want to fill in as a stepmom with no other mom present. She would feel so odd with having him around pretty much early on in our marriage, and she feels like we should wait until he's older, or she wants him to not come at all and just come for vacations. From day one, I have said that my son is going to live with me, even going as far as giving her a time frame. I always said that I want him here right before he starts middle school. I've said this for 2.5 years. If she felt this way the whole time, then why not say something earlier? Why wait until only weeks before our wedding? I'm genuinely thinking about calling it off, and I need advice on my options here, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. This is honestly so unfair to you, it really does suck. So the entire time, like the entire time she's known you, she has had these thoughts and these doubts in the back of her mind, but she hasn't said anything about it. Like, you literally could not have been more clear that this is something you want to happen. And now what, 3 Saturdays from your wedding, she's now being like, well, wait a second, let's not have your son move here. It's like, what are you talking about? It is way too late for that. If she really had an issue with this, she should have brought this up, I don't know, years ago, or maybe moved on to somebody else that could share a goal that she agrees with. But to silently go along with this, only to then drop this on someone who clearly wants this, is honestly insane to me. And that is seriously a massive red flag. I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be looking at changing things around big time, because this is a huge betrayal of trust. You thought you had somebody who was on board with your plans, or at least someone who shared the same goals as you in some kind of way, but boy, does it really seem like she lied to you just to get this far. So hopefully this all works out for you and you're able to find some kind of solution, because legitimately what you're describing right now sounds absolutely awful. I caught my friend kissing my husband's neck while I was asleep, and now that I've confronted my husband about this, he's claiming that nothing bad happened and that I'm blowing things way out of proportion. And at this point, I seriously now don't know what to do. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for 2 years and together for 3. This just happened about 5 hours ago, and I'm not sure how to feel or what to believe. For context, my friend comes over to drink and hang out every once in a while, and when she does, we let her sleep in the guest room so she doesn't drive home drunk. Last night, we all decided to watch a movie in bed. I fell asleep after maybe an hour, and at 4 a.m., I feel them both move off of the bed, so it woke me up. My husband said he went to go get water, and my friend said that she had to use the bathroom. After they got back onto the bed, I was awake, but my eyes were closed. I noticed the movie got louder, and then I heard a kissing noise. I turned over slowly, and I saw my friend caressing my husband from behind and giving him kisses on his neck while he watched the movie. Once she realized that I saw her, she froze, quickly moved her hands, and we stared at each other for a good 30 seconds. Eventually, I asked her what was going on, and she swore it was nothing and that nothing happened. My husband initially said the same, but after about an hour and a half of asking for the truth, he told me that he didn't know the kisses were for him and that he froze and didn't know what to do. When I asked him why it took him so long to tell me the truth, he said it was because he was afraid of how my friend would react. I don't know if I should believe him or not. She kissed him twice that I know of, and he has a history of lying to me. My friend was quiet the whole time I was trying to get the truth out of my husband, and eventually I told her to leave my house. She left, and my husband got upset at me for being mad at him for what happened. Personally, I think he shouldn't have let it get to that point in the first place. He said that she caught him by surprise, but eventually confessed that she first rubbed him on his back and told him it's okay, and then after that, she sat directly behind him, hugged him from behind, and started to kiss his neck multiple times. He said that she was probably just comforting him because she noticed that he was upset because him and I have been having some issues lately. But I feel like they both have fault. She was insanely wrong for doing that, and he was wrong for letting her do that. He says that I'm messed up for getting mad at him and not her, which is not true. I'm honestly mad at the both of them. I'm not sure how to go about this. Part of me wants to call it quits, but the other half of me feels bad for not not believing him. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, I think you need to say the quiet part out loud in my opinion, because it really seems like your husband is cheating on you. I don't believe for a second that this is something that just happened suddenly in your bed. Like, I'm pretty sure this has been going on for a while, and he's definitely been a willing participant in all of this. Like, I know for a fact that if a woman started kissing up on me, and I had a girlfriend who I loved and appreciated, I would recoil from her immediately and be like, wait a second, what are you doing? Get away from me. I would make a massive fuss and say, you've gotta go. This is not okay, and you've crossed a serious boundary. But the husband in this story didn't do anything like that. He didn't even push away from her when she started rubbing up against him. Like, he just sat there and allowed it to happen. So it kind of makes me believe that he's used to this kind of treatment from this friend specifically. And that's honestly awful. It makes me wonder what they do together when you fall asleep inside of that guest room. This all seems super sketchy and in my opinion, a massive red flag you cannot ignore. I mean, he even tried to say, oh, I didn't stop her because I was afraid of how she would react. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. Your wife is literally sleeping right next to you on your bed. So hopefully this all works out for you, because this honestly sounds awful and you do not deserve this in the slightest. My mom feels entitled to my clothing all the time, constantly calling me selfish if I don't give her all of my clothing whenever she wants it, while also saying that I'm gonna be a terrible roommate and friends to anybody in the future. And I'm honestly so done with the way she treats me that I'm already planning on cutting her out of my life when I get old enough. And I honestly can't wait for that day to come sooner than later. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female, and my mom, who lives in Oregon, had a falling out this December, and recently she came to visit me and my dad in Texas. I was very worried about this because of her and I having the fight, but she seemed to regret what she did and was trying to be careful around me for the first day that she visited, which I really did appreciate. The second day, she asked to borrow some leggings or shorts from me to go play tennis, and I initially said no, as I buy all my clothes myself, and I'm pretty protective over my leggings in particular, which are pretty expensive, and I don't like getting dirty or sweaty. However, she begged me, so I gave her a pair of shorts to use. She said they were too short and she needed leggings because of the cold outside. So I found a pair that I would maybe be okay with her using, as long as she took care of them. She tried them on and told me that they were too short as well, and that she needed leggings that go all the way down to her ankle instead of the mid-calf. I argued with her and said that I wasn't willing to let her borrow the ones I own like that, and then she started yelling at me, and my dad did as well to back her up, saying that I'm selfish and I need to hand them over. Well, I told her no, and that I had given her plenty of options, and that she should just choose from those, and that it wasn't my fault that she hadn't packed any with her. She and my dad then said that I should have let her look through my closet and pick out whatever she wanted, and that everyone, such as my future roommates and friends, are going to hate me because I was too selfish. I just walked away to my room to cool off, and there I found a pair of fleece-lined leggings, which she initially accepted, but she heard the tone of my voice, which wasn't sunshine and rainbows, due to her being so rude to me right before. She said that I was being too rude to her, and that she didn't need the leggings anyways, because she could just wear the pair that she had worn on the plane the day before. I was so incredibly insulted by this, because if she had a pair, then why ask me for one? We were both pretty upset, and she calmed down a little bit and said she wanted to talk to me about how selfish I was being. I told her it was not the right time, as I had to get to work, and when I went to go, she then said an awful swear word to me, and I honestly couldn't believe it. She said this to her own daughter, who she was trying to make it up to. My dad refused to drive me to work, so I went to bike over. As I was leaving, my mom decided to put in one last jab and told me to take off the shirt I was wearing, which she had given me because it didn't suit her. She grabbed a pair of scissors and said she was going to cut it up, to which I laughed and took off the shirt. My dad realized how crazy she was acting and tried to calm her down. She asked why I was laughing, and I said to her, "And you think that you've changed? That is honestly a joke." Anyways, I changed my shirt and was halfway out the door when she yelled at me some more. I eventually then left for work and got out of there. But unfortunately, this is not even the worst of my mom. But once I'm old enough, I absolutely have the plan to cut her out of my life. Yeah, your mom sounds absolutely unhinged. Like, her behavior was completely unhinged. She quite literally tried to steal clothing from you, all under the guise of like, oh, but I need a pair of leggings. But it's like she already brought leggings with her. Why is she trying to take yours and use yours instead of her own? Like, that really is weird to me, and I would be just as upset as the original poster in this situation. Like, she's literally just doing this, it seems like, to get a rise out of you. And that is so annoying to deal with. So truly, I hope everything works out for you in the the end, I really hope you don't have to deal with your mom in this capacity very soon, because the way she's acting and treating you is so self-centered, and in my opinion, your mom and your dad absolutely suck. My husband tries to warn our neighbors about their landscaping, but gets told to mind his own business several times. So my husband decides to maliciously comply, allowing them to practically ruin their yard and get in trouble with the city and the HOA. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, my husband is pretty handy. Prior to COVID, he had flipped several houses as a fun side gig. It's what he really loves to do, and he became very familiar with a ton of city codes. During COVID, it seems everyone was suddenly buying houses to flip out of boredom, and prices skyrocketed, so he put that on hold. So then he started doing household repairs and upgrades, building fences and stuff like that all around the neighborhood as well. To get a better understanding of the neighborhood HOA bylaws and whatnot, he joined the HOA Architectural Committee, though he learned all there was to know about what was allowed and what was not, how the processes worked, and how to work around certain things. So, long story short, my husband was very knowledgeable in what to do and not do, and various processes with the neighborhood and the city. Our next door neighbor decided they were going to start landscaping their backyard, and they, I guess, planned to make theirs as similar to our backyard as possible. The problem was that despite being next door neighbors, our land was quite different. For one thing, behind our house was a bunch of brush and pine trees, maybe 3 to 4 feet from the lake that's at the back of the house. We didn't have to do a whole lot to clear the area, but the brush on their property was about 1/3 of their yard, and I'd say it was about 10 feet from the water, give or take. Also, the way the houses on our street are, the land naturally made like a valley, where the house to our right is at the top, and we're in the middle, and the next two houses are at the bottom before it quickly rises again. The first thing the neighbors did was cut down all the trees in their backyard, and they were not small trees either, but rather 4-story tall trees or more. My husband and neighbor were talking about the backyard plans when my husband casually mentioned that he was surprised the city gave him permission to cut down so many trees. For reference, in our city, you had to have an arborist give permission to cut down any trees that were over a certain height. The neighbor first said it wasn't the city's business what he did with his backyard. Then he told my husband to mind his own business, which is like, okay, fair enough. Then they started putting up the retaining wall to bring it up to level with our property, which would have been about 7 to 8 feet tall. Basically, they were just stacking a bunch of cinder blocks. So my husband uneasily asked if their landscapers had ever done a retaining wall like that, and if the city approved it. The city says that if a retaining wall is over 5 feet tall, you need a structural engineer to come out. Again, the neighbor said it wasn't any of the city's business what he did to his yard, while also reminding my husband to mind his own business. Well, while they're filling up the backyard to bring their levels to ours, the landscapers are dumping all the dirt, gravel, and sand into the street, and they were blocking a little over half of the road. Several of the neighbors who had trucks would just hop the curb, but other neighbors with smaller cars were mad. Before my neighbor could ask if they could put the dirt and stuff in their driveway instead of the road like everybody else, my neighbor went off on my husband and told him to get lost in not so nice of words. So we thought, okay then. My husband let them continue working and didn't say a word as they started constructing a 10-foot tall fence, which was against HOA regulations, as fences could not be taller than 6 feet. Between them starting construction 6 days before 7 a.m. and them blocking the road, I guess someone had finally had enough. The next thing I know, city officials were out there putting a giant sign in the yard saying all construction was to be halted until further notice. Now, let me tell you something. It was not us who did this, but my husband found out through the architectural committee that someone had complained about the noise and the road blockage to the HOA, who came out to investigate, saw everything that they had done, and then reported them to the city. They got a hefty fine for every tree stump the city official found. The structural engineer said their retaining wall was not sound and it had to be redone, and it had to have regular inspection during its build. The HOA also told them that not only did they have to take down the 10-foot tall fence, but as they did not get prior approval, and because it was not an appropriate design, the HOA was also going to hit them with a hefty fine. Initially, the neighbor came to us for tattling, but we told them it wasn't us, as nothing they did affected us in any kind of way. For reference, our kids are early risers, so even starting before 7 o'clock didn't bother us. My husband then said that he tried to warn them that this would happen, but the neighbor told him to get lost and mind his business, so he did. Landscaping had started on Black Friday Friday and was shut down for 3 weeks, while I guess they got things sorted out with the city and the HOA. And as of now, their backyard is still not finished. Wow, this is really funny to me, because if the neighbors had just listened to the husband of this story, then they literally could have avoided all of this trouble. But instead, they decided to be hostile and really weird to this guy, and that's just really not fair. Like, this guy really was genuinely trying to help out. He was trying to step up to the plate and say, hey, just so you know, I know a lot about all of this and you might be doing it wrong. And I know if I was doing construction on my backyard and my neighbor's like, hey, wait a second, the city might have a problem with this, I would stop what I was doing like immediately and be like, oh, okay, let me go figure that out real quick. And I can imagine their fines are probably very hefty from the HOA and the city. Like, both of those organizations probably do not play around, especially the HOA. So good for you and your husband for maliciously complying and basically stepping back and letting these people ruin their lives, because they absolutely deserve it after the way they talk to you and your husband. An entitled Karen calls the police on me because she doesn't like the fact that I go out at what she considers weird times. She even goes as far as claiming that I'm selling illegal substances around the neighborhood and that I must be stopped at all costs. But once she was proven wrong and shown that she was completely lying, she slapped me in the face in retaliation, resulting in her getting arrested for slapping a kid. Here's what happened. So I'm a 16-year-old from Serbia, and I live in the building next to my grandmother's. Our buildings are divided into several buildings. Strange, but each entrance functions like its own building, as if we only share walls, and you can't exit one entrance to get to another without leaving the building. Now, I live in the entrance facing another building. If I go around it, the other entrance leads to my grandmother's apartment. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away 8 years ago, leaving my grandmother alone in her apartment. My parents, back then when this happened several years ago, saw one empty room and asked my grandmother if we could turn it into my private room because I needed privacy. Now, my grandmother was thrilled with the idea. After discussing it with me, we made the room. Since I followed my grandmother's rules and helped her, I didn't spend all my time at her place. Instead, I switched between apartments as needed. For example, I'd come home from school, leave my things, and then go to my grandmother's house to sleep. Then I would return home in the morning to have breakfast. I had a sort of routine for when I went where, with an accuracy of plus or minus an hour. Now, just to reiterate, I live in the entrance facing another building. If I go around it, the other entrance leads to my grandmother's apartment. Directly in front of my entrance is another entrance, and above it on the window, at least 70% of the time when I went out, there was an elderly woman. She always looked at me somewhat grumpily as I passed by, and sometimes I would glance at her, but I had headphones on and often wore a hoodie, so I just ignored her. When I had the second shift, I usually got home at about 8:20, and then I went to my grandmother's house at around 10:30, even though sometimes there would be exceptions. Now, that woman was almost always there, but it never really bothered me. I mean, why would it? I only saw her for maybe 20 seconds a day. Well, once when I was leaving my house to go to my grandmother's without headphones or a hoodie, she finally said something that I honestly will never forget. She looks at me and says, "You're leaving to get high again." I looked at her and I said, "What?" She said to me, "Every day you go out with a hoodie on your head in the dead of night, and I can clearly see what you're doing." I then looked at her and I said, "What do you think I'm doing?" And she responded by saying that I'm dealing some kind of substance. She then demanded to know what I had in my backpack. But I said to her, well, not that it's any of your business, but I have a laptop and equipment. But this Karen was not having it. She looked at me and said, "I think it's illegal substances. Open it and let me see it right now." But I refused to do it. I said to her, "Leave me alone," and I just walked away. Now, the next day, she was waiting for me outside the entrance. She said to me, "What's in that bag?" I looked at her and I said, "You are a psychopath." She then said that if I don't tell her, she's gonna call the police. So I responded by saying, "Call whoever you want. I'm out of here." And I left while she was still yelling at me. The next day, 2 police officers were waiting for me outside the door with the Karen. The Karen then said, "That's him. He's the local dealer." I looked at them and I said, "What is going on?" The first police officer said that they received a report that illegal substance trafficking was happening here. I then looked at the second police officer and I said, is this for real? And they confirmed that even though it seemed absurd, they had to check it out. I then just said to him, "Okay, well, can you search me and let me go then?" The first police officer said, "We'll search you, but we won't let you go immediately because the lady said she saw you dealing." I said to them, "That lady is crazy. But you know what? Do what you have to do. I just want to get this over with." The first police officer searched me while the Karen was yelling about me being a dealer. The second officer asked me how old I was and if I had an ID, and I said to him, "I literally literally went to the building next door. I don't even have a wallet. Can I go to my apartment to get it? I'll even leave my backpack with a laptop as collateral that I'll return. The first officer then said, "Do you live here?" And I said yes, and that's when he said he'll accompany me to my apartment, but he won't enter. Well, when I returned to my apartment, my parents asked what I had forgotten. I said, "Can you please get my wallet with my ID inside? I want to buy some juice," which, by the way, I really did want to do that later. I returned to the police officer and my parents hadn't noticed anything quite yet. We returned outside and I showed my ID, which was valid. The second police officer explained that there's nothing in the backpack and that I had caused them no problems. The Karen then said, "I know he has some substances. I saw him." I then said to her, "Where? Where did you see me?" And at this point, the Karen made a mistake, pointing to a place under the cameras. I then said to her, "Okay, when was that?" The Karen then gave the exact date that she thought she saw me doing something sketchy. So I looked at her and I said, "Great, we can check the cameras." Realizing that her plan backfired, the Karen did the only sensible thing. She slapped me in the face. Well, to make a long story short, the first police officer handcuffed her and put her in the car while the Karen was screaming out loud. Now, for a small detail about me, I have a lot of pimples. So if you slap me, I ended up bleeding a little bit, which made it look a lot worse than it actually was, because honestly, it barely felt like a slap. The first police officer went and informed my parents. They came out and my mom wiped away the blood while my dad talked to the police. He asked the officer if he could send me to wash up, and the first police officer sent me away to do exactly that. Karen was convicted of assaulting a minor and misusing the police. Since we managed to hush up the whole story from the neighbors by some miracle, no one actually saw anything. The Karen received a punishment and a stern warning. Now, this Karen didn't go to jail, but she did get a good enough warning that if she did anything worse to me, then she would get a much worse punishment. But even after that incident, she could still be seen at her usual spot next to a window, glaring at me every time I walk by. Yeah, that entitled Karen was clearly just trying to cause problems. She saw some young kid coming in and out at hours that she didn't agree with, so she assumed the worst and accused you of something awful. Like she really tried to convince the police that you were doing something so sketchy. And that part alone is seriously something that would have driven me nuts. She wasted 2 police officers' time, and then when she was cornered because she knew she messed up, she slapped this kid in the face out of some kind of like weird retaliation. I kind of wish she got a bigger punishment, but I guess because she was old, she probably was able to get away with it to some extent. So good for you for standing up for yourself and not taking this garbage for a second, because this entitled Karen was completely out of line for hitting you like that, because you didn't do anything wrong and you definitely did not deserve that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband is dragging his feet to move with me for my new job, and after talking with him about this, as well as trying to find some kind of deadline or even some kind of compromise in some kind of way, I'm now at a point where I seriously don't even think he wants to be in the city we're gonna move to. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I are both 33 years old, and we've been together for more than 6 years. We met in a city on the East Coast of the United States, and we're both in training for our respective niche careers at the time. A few years in, my husband finished his training, but procrastinated at finding the next training position. He ended up with only one offer across the country on the West Coast because all other options were filled by the time he started his search. Now, I was mad because I have been pushing him for about a year to search for a job, which is the normal timeline in his field, and I ended up having to find ways to continue my training on the West Coast to stay with him. Well, it wasn't easy, but I did it by working fully remotely. We agreed then that when I'm done with my training and need to move for jobs that I like, he'll have to pay back by moving with me. It is much harder to find a job in my field, and most people actually ended up giving up on this career, but I got lucky, and I finally found a job this year. Unfortunately, despite trying very hard, it is not on the West Coast, and is not in a big city as my husband would prefer. I still expected that he would move with me as we agreed upon this, even if it means switching to a remote job, which would still be in the same career, but just not as fun as an in-person job would be. From the day I got the precious job offer till now, he hasn't shown any hints of being happy for me, and was in fact visibly and verbally unhappy with the outcome. He kept talking about other opportunities that I was interviewing for, and browsing for jobs or housing around those places, and he was dragging his feet on his job search around my offer. He was more disappointed disappointed than me when I eventually got rejected by those better alternatives, and of course not comforting me as a result. Now, I have accepted the offer, and he's still not engaging in my excitement for the new job, and continued to nitpick the area that we're gonna move to. He would say stuff like, the restaurants are not good enough, I don't like the grocery store, and nothing's happening here. And I've gotta be honest, this has been giving me a lot of stress lately. 2 days ago, he came up with the idea of negotiating with his current company to switch to mostly remote work. And this is an idea that I've been bringing up since before my job was finalized, but he kept saying that it was impossible. But now that I've accepted the offer, he finally seriously considered it, I guess. He planned to ask his boss about this in their meeting today, and have been talking about this with me every 2 hours. The strange thing is that he initially proposed 1 week in person and 3 weeks remote, but every time he brought it up, the in-person time increased. In the evening, he weirdly asked me how much my father was away for work when I was young. We are planning to have kids as soon as possible, and he knew my father being absent was the source of problems in my family. I told him it wasn't about the amount of time my father was away, but that he did nothing to make up for it when he was around. Well, as nighttime came around, his proposal progressed to 2 weeks in person and 2 weeks remote work, because that will be more likely accepted by his boss. I told him that 50-50 is a lot of time away from me, and he should treat this as a negotiation and not worry about what the boss wants, but rather what he wants. He somehow couldn't tell me what he wants and said that he has to think, with him grabbing a notebook and starting to write. Now, that is normal of him, so I just didn't push it and I just went to sleep. Well, today at noon, I was napping and I was woken up by him an hour before his meeting with his boss. He told me he is thinking about some options. The first would be 1 week and then 2 weeks, because this would have the smallest impact on other people's schedule. And the second was a 1.5 week and 2.5 week schedule, with his same rationale being about other people. I then interrupted him and asked why he is still talking about other people's needs. Like, what happened to the 1 week, 3 week schedule? He said that's the next option. And I asked him what he wants again, but he just fell silent. Well, at that point, I finally exploded. I said to him if he doesn't want to move, he can stay and we can get a divorce. I continued to repeat my complaints about the stress that he gave me, reminded him about our agreement, and told him that his progressive increase in time away from me in his proposals made me feel like he doesn't want to be with me. He argued that he is not increasing, but I reminded him what happened yesterday. He argued it was just 2 days more, to which I was like, what are you talking about? And I seriously just didn't even know what to say. He also said he didn't realize that's what he was signaling. I asked him why he's only talking about this with me right before the meeting, especially while I'm napping. He said he'll go delay the meeting, and I just suppressed the crazy amount of question marks that are about to explode in my brain. I told him I don't care anymore, and I pushed him to just get the meeting done. And that's where we're at right now. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of at a loss right now. It doesn't seem anything I said got through to him at all, and I still don't know what in the world he wants. What should I do? Wow, it really seems like your husband just doesn't care about your career, or he's just not willing to compromise and move with you for your job, which, by the way, is incredibly unfair. I'm sure you've gone through a lot of compromises on your end just to make sure he can get his training done and all this other stuff. And this is especially hurtful because you guys agreed to this in the first place. Like, you said, hey, if I get a job offer and we gotta move, you're coming with me, right? And he said, oh yeah, sure, I'll definitely do that. But like, are you gonna do that? Like, is that even gonna happen? Because right now it really seems like he's just completely lying. Like, now that he's faced with the reality of having to move for this job, he suddenly is like, oh man, these restaurants suck and nothing happens there, which has only prompted his question about how much time he can spend away from you. And honestly, that is just so disappointing. The original poster went on to say that if he doesn't move, then she is definitely making sure she's not having kids with him. She's already accepted the job, so she doesn't really have much of a choice in that regard. And honestly, I completely agree with her. Having kids in an environment like this sounds like an absolute train wreck, and I seriously think that would just make things more complicated in this scenario. So hopefully this works out, and hopefully your husband is able to come to his senses and at least pretend like he wants to support you in some kind of way. Because right now he's being very selfish, and this is really not fair for you and your career. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that if she pays for her sister's college, then I will stop favoring her younger sister with my money? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm gonna try and be as clear as possible. My mother had a fund that was supposed to be for both of the grandchildren. She told me multiple times it was for both of the kids. She also informed the girls that they have money, but she unfortunately passed away unexpectedly. My oldest daughter was the only one on the fund, and it is legally hers. But But here's the thing, she didn't share it with her sister, and she now has a huge head start in life with it. Due to this money, she has been able to go to college debt-free and is going to buy a house soon. My husband and I have been scrambling to give as much money as possible to our youngest daughter since she really did get screwed over. Even with all of our help, she still needs to take out student loans. My youngest daughter is working while in college, and she found a student job that gives free housing. But the issue is that she needs a car for it. So my husband and I are going to buy her a car because turning down this job will result in a ton of extra debt for her. Well, my oldest daughter found out about us getting the car and she is angry. She's upset with us favoring our younger daughter and that she never got a car from us. But I pointed out that she doesn't need help financially at all. We argued for a while and I had had enough. I told her that if she pays for her sister's college, then I will stop favoring her sister with my money. Well, my older daughter then called me a jerk, and she isn't responding to anything that I send to her. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for the things that I said? What should I do? I don't think you're favoring your younger daughter at all. It sounds like your older daughter is literally working the system and taking money that's supposed to be for both her and her younger sibling. And sure, the fund only mentioned the older daughter, but it was very obviously expressed verbally from the grandmother while she was still alive that that money was supposed to be for both daughters, that it was not supposed to just go to one of them. And that part in and of itself is honestly so disappointing. Like, the older daughter absolutely knows about this, I would imagine, and she knew that this money would go to her and her sister. And from the sounds of it, it really seems like a lot of money was available to be used. So to that end, I understand where the original poster's coming from, where they're like, wait a second, our other daughter is getting completely screwed out of money. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your older daughter is being very selfish for not splitting the money, even though she knew where this money was supposed to go. Like, in my opinion, it would be different if that money was specifically meant for the older daughter, and like that's the only person that really was supposed to have it. But in this case, it really was supposed to be shared. So for her to run off and be like, oh man, I can't believe you're getting her a car, all the while she's got all this money to work with and has a giant head start in life, that is completely unfair, and I don't blame you for reprimanding her in the way that you did. Am I the jerk for reporting a local homeless woman to the police who stole and destroyed my food? Because right now, my girlfriend and my friends are calling me a jerk, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm from South Asia, and a few years ago, I moved to Australia for my master's degree. I completed it last year and have been working a full-time IT job ever since. Since I don't like grocery shopping, I rely on meal services, which provide you weekly meals and groceries on one day of the week. That way, you can cook and eat them anytime during the week. Usually, I get my box delivered to me anywhere between 3 to 6 in the morning, and I go and get it as soon as I can. This time, I got my delivery at around 8 o'clock as there were some delays, and I went to take it at 8:15 before I could leave for work at 9 o'clock. However, when I reached downstairs, my grocery box was nowhere to be found. I asked the reception of my building, and they said they saw someone keeping it, but didn't notice anything after that, since the receptionist was an acquaintance. He offered to let me see the security camera footage to see what happened to it. In the footage, we saw a lady who came to use the lobby bathroom from outside, who then took the box when no one was looking and sneaked away with it. The receptionist asked me to contact the police just to lodge a complaint, and so I did. While talking to them, one of the other receptionists came back and asked what had happened, and as the footage was still on the screen, recognized the lady taking the box. She was a frequent visitor here to use the washroom. Now, on my street a little down the road is a homeless woman's shelter, and he told me that he knows she lives there and offered to come with me to see if she was anywhere near there so I could get my box. Well, we get there to find the lady sitting outside the shelter with my box, trying to poke her finger from the side of the tape area to see what's inside. When we confronted her, she said that it was hers, but we said we have contacted the cops and we'll point them to her if she doesn't return it. She seemed like she was under the influence, and angrily she just picked up the box and threw it at us, which caused it to open up and some of my ingredients fell out onto the floor, and she started shouting profanities at us, as well as telling us to leave. I picked up what was left of my box and I went back to my building. I then proceeded to complete the report with the police and inform them of the situation, and also explained that we have footage of her stealing it. A few days later, I found out that they reached out to her and had taken her to the station, which had also caused the homeless shelter authorities to ban her from staying there ever again. And I thankfully also got a refund from the food company for my items. Now, when my girlfriend and my friends found out, they all started saying so much garbage garbage and called me a jerk for reporting her. They are all Australian, so I don't know if this is some kind of like cultural thing, but I felt like I was justified in what I did. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Your friends and your girlfriend are completely wrong. You did not do anything wrong, and honestly, the fact that they want you to just let this kind of slide underneath a rug is insane to me and just absolutely inappropriate. Like, let's look at the facts real quick. This homeless woman not only stole your belongings, but she also destroyed it, while also shouting obscenities at you and telling you to get lost. Meanwhile, she's the person who comes into the lobby to use the washroom every single day. Like, this is so backwards, it's not even funny. So I completely think you're justified in calling the cops, because if this can happen to you, it can literally happen to anybody. But don't get me wrong, I have a lot of sympathy for this homeless woman and her situation, but if you steal other people's property, then you absolutely deserve to get the consequences that come your way. That, in my opinion, is not the answer, and the fact that your friends are trying to justify it and be like, oh man, why would you do that? That is insane to me, and that just doesn't make any sense. So no, of course you're not the jerk. You are absolutely justified in calling the cops on someone who stole from you, and anyone who could possibly say otherwise is completely misguided. An entitled jerk demands that I give up my seat on a coach that I was taking across the country, claiming that he wants it more and that him and his wife deserve my seats no matter what. But I decided that enough was enough, so I stood up for myself and I shut this jerk down right where he stood. And I've honestly never felt better about putting somebody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was a couple of months ago, and I was on my way to London and I took a night coach. For those unaware, a coach is like a luxury bus with seat belts, leather seats, Wi-Fi, plugs, toilets, and a lot of stuff like that. Well, like most coaches, you have to book tickets in advance, but you can pay extra to reserve a seat. Any other seat is first come, first serve. Where I get on is the first stop of the coach's route to London, so it's free reign to pick any seat not marked as reserved. I then go all the way back and choose to sit at the emergency exit. It has the most legroom, and there's some distance from the seat in front of me, so I can put the tray down and not break my neck watching a film on my tablet. Now, this was a 10-hour journey, and I was enjoying my time watching some films on my tablet and munching on some snacks for the journey. I'm so used to traveling on buses and coaches, so this honestly wasn't anything new. Well, 3 hours in, at this point it's now midnight, and the coach arrives at a station to let a lot of people on. At the time, I didn't notice that someone was trying to talk to me. It was a mix of me being focused on the film, as well as my headphones being noise canceling. He gave me a slight shake to get my attention, which he did. I took off my headphones and he asked me, "Can I sit there, please?" Now, I thought he wanted to sit next to me, and he asked me because my rucksack and my shopping bag was on the other seat. I'm not antisocial, so I wasn't going to say no, but I decided to ask just to clarify. I said to him, "Oh, do you want me to move my stuff for you to sit down?" This guy looks at me and says, "No, I mean, can I have both of these seats for me and my wife?" I looked at him and I said, "No, because I'm currently sitting here." He said to me, "Yes, but we want to sit there, so give me these seats." I looked at him and I said, "You're not being funny, man, but I also want to sit here. That's the reason I sat here." But this guy just seriously wasn't getting it. He said to me, "I know, but I want to sit there now, so move please." I asked him where I was supposed to sit then, and he told me the seats in front of us are free. So I responded by saying, "Well, there you go, you can sit there then." But this guy responded by saying, "But that's not where I want to sit." I then responded quite bluntly. I said to him, "Look, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to move from where I am just because you want to sit here with your wife, okay? If you reserve these seats, then fair enough. I would absolutely move. But these seats aren't reserved. So no, if you'll excuse me, I'm not going to move." At that point, I put my headphones back on, and that was the end of that. I saw him walk down to the front of the coach. No idea if he went to complain to the driver or what, but I didn't care as I knew I was in the right. Sure, I was quite rude at the end, but I wasn't going to give up my spot just because someone asked me to when I had already settled down in the seat. A couple minutes later, I did see him and his wife come back up to me, but they walked past and sat behind me. And what's funny is that they glared at me as they walked by. Now, it should be worth mentioning that he didn't have any visible or physical disabilities. If he needed legroom for disabled access, he should have said something. But even then, that's what the front of the coach is for. It is literally for disabled access. In fact, him and his wife were way skinnier than me, and I'm a pretty fat guy. So for the last 6 hours, they just sat behind me. I didn't hear what they were saying, but a part of me jokingly thought that they were planning to take over my seats if I went up and used the bathroom. But I never did, so thankfully I never found out. Wow, seriously? Like, what is wrong with people? Like, they could have gone about asking for this seat in several other ways. place. They could have asked nicely, they could have looked around for any other seats, they could have done anything other than the way they approached this. Because for this guy to walk up and be like, oh, you've got to move, I want that seat right now. Like, that's obnoxious, and there's no reason to act like that. Especially when there's seats literally all around the original poster, and there's plenty of spots that they could have sat and had no problems. So good for the original poster for standing up for themselves. Because personally, based on the way that guy was acting, I don't think you were rude at all, and I honestly think that guy absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Everyone at my job got mad when I took charge simply because no one else would do it. But as a result, they all complained to corporate, stating that I was rude and nasty in the time of crisis, and that I was not kind in the face of disaster. So I decided to maliciously comply by not stepping up to the plate when another accident happened, resulting in all those people who complained about me getting fired. Here's what happened. So about 14 years ago, I worked for a major petroleum company in Indianapolis. Over my 4 years there, I applied myself, and I gained enough knowledge to be more knowledgeable than most of the senior guys. Well, one day stuff hit the fan, and we were looking at a potential major spill because the packing in a pump had failed. Nobody was doing anything, and I'm the kind of person who likes to take charge, so I just started barking orders. Now, you have to understand, this would have been an EPA nightmare, so there was no time to be nice. Well, the other employees went and complained, and I was called into the manager's office and was told about the complaints, how I was just barking orders and I didn't ask nicely. He told me that I did the right thing, and that next time, if it wasn't going to be a major issue, to just give them enough rope to hang themselves. So I thought to myself, okay. So the next time I saw that they had the valve set in such a way that 2 soap tanks would overflow, and while it's not an EPA big deal, it would bring scrutiny from the health, environmental, safety, and security decision of our company. I mentioned to them that they might want to check the valve lineup because something just didn't look right. Well, they told me to mind my own business. And as it was time for me to go home, I called the manager from my car and said that you should probably start heading to the terminal because 2 tanks are about to overrun. I tried to tell them, but they told me to mind my own business. Well, I didn't get halfway home before a neighbor to the facility came knocking on the door saying liquid was overflowing 2 tanks. As the only first responder not involved in the incident, I had to return to the facility and supervise the cleanup until corporate came in about 3 hours later. All 3 were put on probation and then eventually fired for more screw-ups. Now, the beauty of this was that after that incident, they were told to follow what I said explicitly and never again complain that someone doesn't say please and thank you in a crisis. They all hated me until the day they left. And you want to know why? It's because I was the only person to take charge when no one else would step up and do it. Honestly, good for the original poster for sticking to their values and doing exactly what they need to do in a time of crisis. Like, here you are stepping up to the plate and taking care of something that could have been massive. And as a point of reference, the EPA stands for Environmental Protection Agency, and I'm willing to bet you definitely don't want them knocking on your door, especially if there's a major spill from a petroleum company. It's also really funny to me that these coworkers are like, wow, I can't believe you talked to us like that. You were so mean about how you said that. And it's like, what are you talking about? This is literally an emergency and you want me to be like super nice to you? Like, I'm sorry, but we need to get stuff done because if we don't, it's gonna be tragic and we're all gonna lose our jobs. Or potentially even worse, like, are you serious right now? It sounds like the coworkers were just being super soft and there was like no reason to be so offended over what this guy was doing. So truly good for this guy for stepping up and doing what needed to get done, because clearly nobody else had the guts to step up when it counted. Am I the jerk for getting my neighbor and client banned by all local babysitters after they tried to slander my name online? Here's what happened. So over the holidays, I got the chance to go to the Caribbean with my neighbors as their nanny. My parents were not thrilled, but it was after Christmas, so they let me go. The deal was pretty simple. It was 10 days at an all-inclusive resort. I would share a room with the kids and take care of them for 7 days and nights. In return, I got $500 and 3 days to myself, and the rooms would be adjoined. My parents insisted I get everything in writing, so there was no mistake. Basically, we agreed that I would work 2 days and take 1 day off, and I would do this over and over again. And I thought to myself, no problem. And I even checked out the included activities with any excursions that I might like. On my 3rd day off, I had planned to go scuba diving. I got up early and went on my excursion. When I got back, the parents were mad that that I had left without warning, but I reminded them that we had a deal, and they said they had met another couple there and were going golfing and that I screwed up their plans. But I seriously don't know why they made plans on one of my free days. They were upset all the way home. When we got back, they posted how irresponsible I was. One of the other families called me to get my side of the story, so I sent them a picture of the deal that we agreed on. They said they knew I wouldn't do what I was being accused of. Then they started commenting on the post made by my neighbors, and my parents also joined in on this. But I think everyone thought they were just protecting me. So now it's a big deal and everyone knows that they tried to change our deal without talking to me, and some of the other babysitters or their parents are now saying they won't babysit for my neighbors anymore. Now, I feel bad about it because they paid a lot for my vacation, and if they had asked about it, I would have probably switched my excursion to the last day. Anyways, they are upset that I narked them out, which I didn't even do. They said that I could have talked to them if I had a problem, even though I'm not the one that made this public. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? It is so rich of them to be like, wow, if you had a problem, you could have talked to me in private. Meanwhile, they post all this garbage online about you not doing your job. Like, seriously, what in the world is going on? They called you irresponsible and all this other stuff online, and then they get upset like, wow, you didn't have to make this public. It's like, what are you talking about? You tarnished my reputation. That is not okay, and you're not gonna get away with that. And here's the thing, they completely went back on your deal. I mean, thank goodness you had everything in writing to some degree. I'm assuming you had some kind of text message of some kind, or something to basically notate that yes, you had this agreement and this is how it was specifically set up. So for them to turn their backs on you and start posting about you online while simultaneously being upset that their side of the story was completely wrong and they were actually just trying to screw you over, in my opinion, is completely hilarious. They literally want to be both victim and executioner in the same sentence. If they wanted to renegotiate the terms of your agreement, they should have brought you along and said, hey, we need to change just a few things. And then, just like any other reasonable person in the world, you probably would have been like, sure, we can change that up. That's not that big of a deal. But instead, they're like, wow, on your day off, we went golfing and you messed things up for us. It's like, no, I didn't. You did that yourself. These parents are weird, and honestly, none of this is your fault. So truly, you are not the jerk, and I really think your neighbors got exactly what they deserved. Am I the jerk for lying to my family for 2 years by not revealing that me and my husband bought a house by the lake? Because right now, after they found out, they're calling us greedy and are demanding the address to that house, with my mom even asking for spare keys. And right about now, I'm seriously unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. A few years ago, my husband and I told our relatives that we wanted to buy a country house by the lake. In our country, almost everybody lives in apartments, so our families were very happy. My mother immediately decided that she wanted to arrange a vegetable garden in the yard of this house. And my husband's sister said that it would be a great place where she could take her children for the summer. My sister started fantasizing about family picnics, and my husband's brother jokingly said that this would be a good place to get drunk on the weekends. Well, when we heard all of this, we were both terrified. We did not want any of this in the slightest. We wanted to have a place where we could truly feel at home, a place where we could rest, and a place where we could arrange everything to our taste. We wanted a place where we could raise our future children, where we could have peace and quiet and not deal with family squabbles. In the end, we decided to tell them that the deal had fallen through and there would be no house. After all, it is none of their business. We were the only ones buying the house, and it has nothing to do with them. Plus, we just didn't need to tell them anything. We only told the truth to our best friends, who we were sure would not spoil anything. The house is really beautiful, and my friends and I often go there on the weekends. Well, 2 years have passed by, and my sister found out about the house by accident because one of my friends posted a photo from there. Now our families are furious and call us greedy. Many of the relatives don't want to talk to us until we give them the address, with my mom even asking for spare keys. And this is exactly the hype that we tried so hard to avoid. Now, I don't think we're jerks, but my husband is starting to hesitate about what we should have done. So truly, are we the jerks in this scenario? What should I do? Not only are you not the jerks, but if you seriously want to keep your peace, I would not give out any spare keys to your house. I don't even care if it's your mother. Literally, don't give it to anybody. Here's the thing. If your relatives don't want to talk to you until you give them access to the house, then I think that's probably like a big problem solved. These people see this house as a party house or as a house that they can slowly take over. But this isn't some family property that anybody can just show up to. This isn't a place where someone can live and get drunk drunk at on the weekends. This is your place and your place alone. And literally no one else in your family has any say over what you can and can't do with this house. Like with the way they're acting, I don't blame you for a second for not wanting to tell them about your purchase. Because right now they're giving you this weird ultimatum of how they're just not going to talk to you unless you give them the address. Like, I'm sorry, that's insane behavior and you do not owe them that kind of information. It seems like your extended family tries to claim anything anyone else gets in their life, and this is one of those situations where they're like, wait a second, what about me? But then I would want to ask back, yeah, exactly, what about you? You don't own this house, and there's a reason I didn't tell you about it. Because literally, this is the way you would act. And I don't know about the original poster, but I would not want family like this over all the time at a place that I would want to call home. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your extended family is incredibly selfish and very entitled, and I simply don't blame you for not wanting to deal with them in the slightest. Would I be the jerk if I decided to break up with my boyfriend after he didn't do anything for my birthday or even Valentine's Day? Because right now, that's the reality I'm faced with, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for nearly 4 years, and we've been living together for almost 3. It was fine until March of 2023, and that is where we kind of started struggling. Now, my birthday is a little more than a week before Valentine's Day, so I don't ever expect anything for Valentine's Day because of how close they are together. However, I made it clear at the beginning of the relationship that if we don't celebrate my birthday, then I would like to do something for Valentine's Day instead. My boyfriend has always struggled with getting gifts, even for his own family, so I've been trying to be patient and understanding with his lack of gifts on all gift-giving holidays. There have been birthdays and Christmas where I've gotten absolutely nothing, and sometimes I get something small. This year, however, he didn't even bother booking the day off of work. I even reminded him before his job's booking deadline to book my birthday and our anniversary off. I hardly even saw him during my birthday, and I went out and bought my own cake and spent my night completely alone. His mom got me a little gift, and honestly, I didn't even care what it was. I was just happy that someone was thinking of me for my birthday. I hope that maybe he would make it up to me on Valentine's Day, because he was kind of talking about it like he had something planned. I felt like an idiot for even getting my hopes up because I saw him for a whopping 10 minutes that day. He spent the morning out with his friends, and when I came home, he was asleep with a brand new PS5 downloading some games. He said that he was going to get groceries while out with his friends, but didn't get anything but the PS5. So he bought a gift for himself on Valentine's Day. Any plans that he talked about just didn't happen like usual. Now, it doesn't even matter if I tell him exactly what I want. He's not going to do it or get it. Then, even during the time leading up to my birthday, he was only talking about things that he wants to get himself, like a PS5. So honestly, am I being too greedy by being upset about this? I'm just tired of feeling like I'm not as important to him as he is to me. Would it be okay if I broke up with him over this? What should I do? I think you hit the nail on the head with that last sentence, because from the outside looking in, it really seems like he does not prioritize you at all. Like he just straight up ignored your birthday and Valentine's Day, even though you've made it very clear that if we're not going to celebrate one of them, then you want to celebrate the other one. And also, you're not asking that much of him. You're literally asking for the bare minimum in a relationship, and I seriously just don't think it's that hard to try and make plans for your significant other in this way, especially for Valentine's Day. Like, there is no good excuse for that. That's a very famous holiday, at least in America, and there's no reason he should have missed that at all. Like, the bar is so low in this scenario, it's practically on the ground. So no, of course you're not the jerk in this situation. Your boyfriend is being absolutely inconsiderate of your feelings and of the holidays that are in front of him, and if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be reconsidering everything that I know about him. Several entitled customers demand that I take pictures of their table that I'm serving, even when I'm incredibly busy doing my job, and I'm honestly so sick of it that I'm now starting to say no. Here's what happened. Okay, so things are really starting to get out of hand. I don't mind taking people's photos. If it adds to their night and I have the time, why not? But it's now multiple tables at night, and it's now rarely an appropriate time. No exaggeration, but 4 out of the 5 tables that ask me do so when I'm carrying a stack of dirty dishes or a tray full of drinks, or when I'm running food to another table and I'm very clearly and visibly busy. Half the time it's a table in someone else's section, just like a few nights ago. I was running drinks during the rush for another server, and after I delivered one table's drinks, they immediately asked me to take their picture. I still had multiple drinks on my tray, and when I told them that they'd have to wait for their server to return, one woman legitimately scoffed. I've had people attempt to interrupt me while I'm taking another table's order, order. And I've had people interrupt me while in the middle of taking their table's order, just to take a stinking photo. Last night, I reached my limit. I was passing by a table in another section, and a man grabbed my arm and handed me his phone. Now, I knew what he wanted, but instead of acquiescing to his non-request, I slipped the phone in my apron and I kept walking. I went and stood in the kitchen for 60 seconds, just enough time for him to sweat. And of course, he was waving frantically from the table as I approached. His dining companions were cracking up, but he was not happy. He said to me, "I wanted you to take our picture, not walk off with my phone." So I looked at him and I said, "Oh, really? You just handed me your phone and didn't say anything." So I assumed it was a gift. I placed his phone on the table and then I walked away. And of course, I immediately told my coworkers. And at the end of the night, the server told me that the same guy later did the exact same thing to him. And the server told the guy that he would have thought the guy had learned his lesson by now, considering the first server the guy did that to walked off with his phone. And the guy was not amused by that either. And then 99% of the time, it's older folks who are doing this, clearly in their late 50s and up, which is prime time for this kind of obnoxious, entitled, oblivious behavior. I know it's important for them to document every activity for their Facebook friends, but it is not my priority at all, and I'm honestly so sick of it. Yeah, that seriously sounds really obnoxious. Like, these people are being very disruptive, and they're grabbing you right when you literally have no time to do anything for them. Whether you're delivering food or at least helping another customer, or trying to get somebody's order, to have them come up and be like, "Hey, can you take our picture?" without any kind of acknowledgement that maybe you're a little too busy for that is incredibly rude. I think the way you handled that one guy, though, is absolutely brilliant. This guy didn't even ask you for a photo. He just handed you his phone and just expected you to what, read his mind? Like, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not a telepath. I can't read your thoughts because, trust me, your thoughts are probably stupid. So truly, good for you for starting to say no to these people, because honestly, I think it's time for you to put your foot down, because these people have been very disrespectful of your time and completely ignoring the fact that you're on the clock. And in my opinion, you absolutely do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.